A very good morning to you. The new Prime Minister hitting the ground running.
Visiting all 4 nations across the country.
As he tries to reset their relationships with Westminster.
Brand new Chancellor Rachel Reeves is to announce an overhaul of planning rules today and to get Britain building in her first major Treasury speech.
Surviving Tories begin jostling for the leadership as the election post-mortem gets underway.
France faces a hung parliament as a left-wing coalition halts the rise of Marine Le Pen's national rally. But what does this mean for President Macron?
And the Prince of Wales's campaign to stop homelessness is set to be revealed in a new documentary later this year.
There he was cheering at the weekend, but in the sport, Lewis Hamilton is back as he wins his first Grand Prix in 945 days. I have been counting. That was at Silverstone yesterday. At Wimbledon, there's the mixed doubles controversy, which we'll talk about. Emma Raducanu lost to the world number 123 yesterday, so someone higher ranked than her. And England prepare for the Netherlands on Wednesday.
As the search for summer continues, unfortunately this week is going to be providing more of the opposite with rain on its way. Join me later for all of the details.
Hello there, a very good morning to you. 1 minute past 6 on this Monday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster and this is GB News Breakfast.
So the Prime Minister is on a tour of Britain as he tries to reset the relationship between Westminster and the devolved nations.
Yesterday, he met with First Minister John Swinney in Edinburgh.
And today, he heads to Northern Ireland and Wales before returning to England to meet with a group of cross-party mayors.
Well, it comes as the new government gets straight to work. This morning, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is to give her first major speech as she promises to rip up planning rules and get Britain building.
Joining us now, former advisor to Boris Johnson. We say good morning to Oscar Redrop. Oscar.
Morning.
Well, he has hit the ground running. I don't suppose he had any real need to go around all nations, but he's doing that. What will he hope to achieve here?
Well, it's definitely a honeymoon period. I think this long, drawn-out election campaign, although it was only 6 weeks, but from the start of the year, it's just been election, election, election. And I think his absolute kind of priority will be consistency, professionalism, ease, and no real sudden movements. Very similar to his style that we've seen from him in opposition. I think he will perceive that the nation, the country, have gone through the mill with politics over the last months, years even, and he'll just want kind of that quiet consistency that will enable him to get on and do the things that he will deem priorities. Having said that, I've heard, and you'll see a lot of it, not just from Starmer, but from Reeves today, you know, the work starts here. Oh, that thing over there was so terrible. The Tories have really left us in the lurch on that. We're really going to get to work on this. We're going to get to work on that. And I think people are going to want to see things pretty quickly. It's like, you know, if I go to my barber and he looks at me and he says, the last barber did a really horrible job on your hair there. You kind of go, OK, thank you for identifying the problem, but can you sort it out now? I'm in your chair now, so it's going to be an interesting week.
Well, straight away, they've scrapped the Rwanda scheme, and I think that will become an instant pressure because, of course, a lot of the crossings happen over the summer, and Yvette Cooper will have to hit the ground running, to use an overused phrase now, on that, because in a lot of the seats that Labour wanted to win were Reform coming second, and there will be this huge pressure on them to deal with this problem. Whether or not they can, that remains to be seen. And I suppose also the Brexit question. We've had David Lammy going straight over to the EU, shaking hands, rubbing shoulders, and sending lots of signals, warm words from Ireland as well yesterday. Will that put pressure on this honeymoon period for Starmer?
100%. And there's a habit in politics, and you know, different makeups of Conservative administrations have done this, where it's, you know, the grown-ups are in charge now. You know, where the grown-ups are back in the room.
Sunak tried it.
Yeah, and it is a habit, and we've seen that with, you know, with Yvette Cooper and Wes Streeting as they've gone into their departments this weekend. But ultimately, you know, and, you know, Rwanda was a gimmick. Well, you know, smash the gangs and a border control enforcement team, that could be a gimmick. That could just as easily sound quite gimmicky as well. They, particularly with that pressure from Reform, they are going to need to show results so quickly. And like I said, they have a honeymoon period now of a week or so. I mean, it really is that short. but those kind of grown-up vibes that the Labour Party have tried to juxtapose with the Conservatives, he needs to deliver.
Ireland is interesting. I mean, he obviously has to strengthen relationships between the Stormont regime and Westminster, but also Southern Ireland and his relationship, because of the Northern Ireland's unique position there, the relationship with the government in the Republic of Ireland was not at its strongest under the Conservative rule.
No, I mean, in fairness, when you think about resetting relationships, which is a lot of the language that the Labour Party are using at the moment, that also, I think, is something that is felt by certain demographics and voters across the country. But when you aim to reset relationships, you really want to see a change and a difference after those kind of initial meetings. I think the Metro Mayor stuff will be interesting. You know, Ben Houchen's the only Conservative left. It'll be interesting to see that part of the world, how they do, because Teesside actually has had a lot of money and funding over the last few years. Is that going to dry up now? And the other thing, Starmer has a slight habit, I think. It's probably too early in the morning to start criticising the new Prime Minister, but he has a slight habit of walking out of meetings and rooms, whether that be in Scotland, and we'll see what happens in Northern Ireland and Wales, or when he goes up to Teesside, and kind of coming to the same... kind of coming out to the public and the media and saying the same thing, which is, you know, resetting and, you know, grown-ups in charge. And the shock I think he will get is that so many different groups of voters and different, you know, different nations have such high expectations of this Labour government now that have gone around very skillfully pointing out all the problems. And if they just get this bland, kind of technocratic, but isn't moving the dial, honeymoon period's over. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah,
exactly.
Incidentally, Oscar, nice haircut.
Thank you. Well done, Barbara. Well done.
Very good. We'll speak again later, my friend, after 7
you.
o'clock. Thank you very much indeed. If you've got a question for Oscar, if you want to take part, please do get in touch with us today, and we will put that to him. Dilemmas, problems, issues that you think should come to the fore. Now, a shock exit poll last night put the French's far-right plans to govern in disarray after they came third behind the far left and President Macron's Central Alliance.
Well, it is still obviously waiting for those results all to come through, but that exit poll giving us an indication of how it's going, and it remains the best ever parliamentary results, elections, and massive... Oh, sorry, auto cues lost me there. Anyway, it could leave Emmanuel Macron resigning.
OK, let's talk now to former French diplomat Francois Joseph Chichen on this. Francois, how would you sum up the situation that we're finding ourselves now in France?
Well, it's a situation of big uncertainty. You know, you had an election in the UK a few days ago. It was a decisive election. Last night's result in France was everything but decisive. And we have a divided parliament with three main blocks, the far right, the centre and the far left. And it's going to be very, very difficult to put a government together on that basis. So we are in for days, if not weeks, of negotiations. And, you know, the French political system is a presidential system. It's not really a parliamentary system. So it's quite difficult to arrange, you know, negotiation between political parties is not really in the culture of the French system. So it's going to be quite a difficult situation in the coming days.
So a difficult situation in terms of negotiations and trying to come to some sort of power-sharing agreement in this hung parliament. But what does it mean for Macron? Does he have any mandate left?
Well, first of all, this is still a big defeat for the president. You remember 4 weeks ago, he made this gamble by calling an election. And this gamble backfired spectacularly in the first round of the election and last night as well, because his party before the election had around 250 seats and he's left with around 100 and 120 seats. Let's see what the final results say. But you know, the president is very much weakened. Now, I don't think he will decide to resign. I think somehow the fact that the parliament is very divided puts him a little bit back into the game because, you know, the president has to decide who the prime minister will be. He appoints the prime minister. And in a situation where the parliament is divided, that means that, you know, he's going to have a role in brokering the discussion between the various political parties. and that is going to give him a little bit of influence. But he has still 3 years to go before the next presidential election, and it's very difficult how he can, recover politically from that. And I think it's fair to say it's going to be a lame duck pretty quickly now.
Francois, if this is confusing for the audience in the UK, could you just explain how the presidency and the Parliament work side by side, or indeed if they do?
Yes, so it's particularism of the French system to have this effectively two sovereignties. The president is directly elected by the people, as well as the National Assembly, the lower house of Parliament. And most of the time, what happens is that the Parliament is of the same political persuasion as the president. In that situation, it's quite straightforward. The president appoints the prime minister. They work together really well. But it has happened in history before that the Parliament has a different political persuasion than the president, meaning the prime minister is also from a different political party. It's a situation we call cohabitation. So it's really living the two heads of the executive branch, living together and having to make things work despite being of a different political party. It used to happen before several times. It has worked well. So, the system, although it's not designed to work that way, we have seen in the past working properly. But nevertheless, in this kind of situation, when the Parliament is different from the president, the power really gets back to the Parliament instead of the president. And again, the president is going to be very, very much weakened by this situation.
Just a final thought. We're looking at pictures of Marine Le Pen there. She'll be disappointed, having done so well just a fortnight ago. What does this mean for her party? And how dramatic, for people who haven't been following French politics, has been the rise? I know they've been rebranded, but, the former National Front in France, now the National Rally. Was this even conceivable 20 years ago? And where do they go from here?
Yeah, I mean, it's an extraordinary progress that I've made in the past couple of years, really. 3 years ago, there were a handful of MPs from Marine Le Pen's party in Parliament. In 2022, there were 89, and now there will be around 140, 150. Let's see what the final results say. So it's a dramatic progress. And yes, the final results for Marine Le Pen are not going to be as good as they wanted it to be. But again, this progress is quite impressive. And they are still the first biggest political party in the French Parliament at the moment. That's quite important. They don't have a majority, obviously, but it's an important moment for French politics. And that means that despite the disappointment of tonight, the National Rally, so Marine Le Pen's party in France, is still on a very, very positive trajectory ahead, particularly because this is a big question, in the next 3 years, who is going to be the next president, because Macron cannot run again. Yeah. So Marine Le Pen is in a good position ahead of the 2027 presidential election.
Yeah, but what position? She was in a better position earlier this week, and then there's a break in elections, and this is something I just don't really understand. There's a sort of pause, and then you can go round two voting. Would that round two have been affected by what they saw from round one?
So look, what happened between round two and round one and round two, sorry, it was very interesting. What happened essentially is that a lot of candidates withdrawn from the race in a bid to stop the far right from getting more MPs. So that's what we call in French the Front Républicain, the Republican front against the far right. And that has been extraordinarily effective, unexpectedly so. This is why the polls over the past few days didn't see what happened last night coming, because they didn't expect this anti-far-right front to work as effectively as it has. But, all of these political parties that united against the far-right, they have very, very little in common. So from the far left all the way to the center-right. So it's a united front against the far right, but what they stand, they don't stand for the same thing taken together, and this is why it's going to be difficult to form the next government.
We have a phrase for that in England. We say, "My enemy's enemy is my friend," and it looks like that's exactly what's happened across the channel. Thanks very much for explaining all of that, Francois Joseph Chichin. Appreciate it. He's a former French diplomat.
Thank you. Some other stories that you're waking up to on this Wednesday morning. Britain's new Defence Secretary has pledged to step up the UK's support for Ukraine on a visit to Odessa. Only days into the job, John Healey has already met with President Zelensky and announced a new package of support for Ukraine. He also confirmed Britain's steadfast commitment to the country and will be reinvigorated by the new government in Westminster.
The new Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has set out the first steps towards setting up a UK Border Security Command, which the government hopes will reduce small boat crossings in the English Channel. She says a major upgrade in law enforcement is needed to stop illegal channel crossings, and work begins today to recruit what she calls an exceptional leader to lead the new agency.
And the King has met with the men's West Indies cricket team ahead of their first Test match against England at Lord's. The King has, as head of the Commonwealth, also used the opportunity to express his concern for those affected by Hurricane Beryl.
Now, GB News' live coverage of the 12th of July takes place this Friday. Doogie Beattie has been taking a closer look at the political history surrounding this period and how it still affects everyday lives there. He's been chatting with historian Dr. Jonathan Mattison.
Scotland's relationship with England has always been uneasy. And from the beginning of the 17th century, Lowland Scots were planted in the Ulster. This was to reawaken Ulster's economy after Elizabeth I's war with the Irish Earls.
It's a very difficult period, particularly for Presbyterian or Covenanter groups within Scotland, and they experienced great hardship, particularly under the Stuarts, under Charles II and then under James II. And the government is arrayed against them. You see them having to worship out in the heather, and they're hunted and they're harried in the heather by government forces because they won't conform to the establishment, they won't conform to the established church.
James II initially had the backing of those who controlled the lands north of the Humber, and in 1667 a Scotch-Dutch regiment was raised. But the monarch's actions would anger his allies, and it wasn't long before those armies would be used against him.
When James II comes to the throne, and there's an initial rebellion against him by the Duke of Monmouth, and it's brutally crushed by James II and people like commanders like Percy Kirk, who will go on to liberate Londonderry after the siege. He is brought back, and his regiment really do go after the rebels. But James proves himself to be a tyrant, and as a consequence of that, you see the political establishment, the military commanders, the church leaders all coming together right across England and Scotland, and the invitation is issued to William, Prince of Orange, and his wife Mary to come and take the British throne, and the balance of power shifts from just being confined to that of the monarch or the monarchy to the people in Parliament.
A now deposed King James travels from France to Ireland. His Jacobite army must find a deep-water port to gain a passage to Scotland. But the lowland plantation Scots put up resistance, allowing William's army time to move into Ulster and ruin James's plans.
So he moves very quickly with his troops north, but there are pockets of resistance, and those are largely of those planter stock, those, if you like, Ulster Scots personalities, those families that have grown up over 2 generations and beyond. And they hold places like Enniskillen, Londonderry, they make stands in Killalay and Dromore. They hold out long enough for William to supply troops and reinforcements from the rest of the British Isles. And the war then for the Glorious Revolution, or to secure the Glorious Revolution, will take place in Ireland.
The England to catch is brave.
Time now to get your weather update with Jonathan Vautry.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If it's prolonged summery weather that you're after, I'm afraid this week is not going to provide it for everyone. Whilst most of us have a slack pressure pattern to start off Monday, increasingly our attention will turn to this area of low pressure that is very slowly pushing its way in from the southwest. Already starting to see some rain into the likes of Devon and Cornwall, and increasingly that will begin to spread its way in elsewhere as well. Winds strengthening, 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts possible around some exposed coastal areas, turning quite dull and grey here. Elsewhere, there is a decent amount of sunshine to start off the day, but we will start to see some showers developing later on. In the sunshine, though, actually pleasantly warm, 19 to 21 degrees Celsius. Feeling very cold, though, underneath this cloud and rain, more around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius. For your evening rush hour, then, there will be some showers around for Scotland to watch out for. Some of them could be on the heavy side. Just take care as you are travelling home. Again, a few showers for Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England as well. Best of the brightest spells really across this central slice throughout a good portion of the day. Still around 20 degrees Celsius there in Leeds, even at 6 o'clock. But it is going to be a much wetter conditions as we end the day here across the far southwest, turning heavier as that rain begins to push its way in. Some very low cloud as well, turning murky. Really not a pleasant end to Monday at all. And that band of rain will slowly push its way into Wales, central areas of England, skirting into Northern Ireland and perhaps the far southwest of Scotland as we move closer towards Tuesday. Quite mild underneath all that cloud, though. Temperatures not dropping much below 13, 14 degrees Celsius, but a chillier start across the far northwest of Scotland. And it is this area that will see the best of the sunshine, really, right throughout Tuesday, managing to stay driest. Elsewhere, it is going to be a very unsettled day to come. Some heavy pulses, perhaps even some thunderstorms developing around the southeastern areas at times. Feeling humid in amongst all of that, highs of 21 degrees Celsius, but still not the most pleasant of days.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it's a Monday morning and time for the Great British Giveaway, which is very good news.
Yes, it's time and your chance to win the biggest cash prize so far, an incredible £30,000, tax-free. It means you get the lot to do whatever you like with. OK, here are the details of how you could be in with a chance.
Summer could be a scorcher with your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. It's totally tax-free, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Just thinking back to Saturday night, how did your nerves hold up on Saturday night?
It's fine, I was OK.
You watched all the penalties without...
Just the penalties, yeah, just dipped in at the end when it got interesting.
Yes,
how were your nerves?
They were good. I thought the penalties were excellent. They were just absolutely clinical, so they were. And we've got Jack Carson there, our man in Germany, because that penalty shootout means that England are now in the semi-finals against Holland at the Euros, and we'll be live to him with Paul Coyte next.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back. Stefan Kyriazis has, as ever, been to the theatre and saw one of the most successful performers of the modern age, one who has made his name in different genres on television and is always a magnetic presence on the stage. About whom are we talking, Stefan?
We're talking about James Corden at the Old Vic for The Constituent and its Traverse staging. So audience on either side, and it's a fantastic experience. But also it's been done this time to bring everything in a lot and make it quite intimate, because you just have one simple set. It's just a table, office space. This is a new play by Joe Penhall, and it's addressing very, very current issues of safety, especially for people in public service. Doctors, nurses, teachers, and of course, as you know, politicians that are at risk and being attacked. So we have Joe Cox, Sir David Ames, and we have politicians talking about cancelling their surgeries, not wanting to appear in public, teachers being threatened. And James Corden plays an ex-serviceman who is going through a difficult divorce, dealing with a lot of PTSD, also feeling very much like fathers are overlooked, and he wants to fight for their rights. And an old school friend is a local MP, played by Anna Maxwell Martin. And he goes in to start talking to her, and it starts off quite chummy and jovial, and then it darkens and darkens. He gets quite aggressive and frustrated. She wants to help. She's an absolute idealist. This politician sense of we don't choose who we work for. You know, we are here by duty to work for everybody in our constituency. It spirals a lot. I have to say, Corden, sensational. Really? He really is a fantastic actor. Of all of them, he's so natural, and he has the most difficult role where his character is shifting all the time and becomes potentially quite threatening and dangerous, but then there's also a beautiful catharsis at the end.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said stump. You made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Got Paul here. He's got the sport. What have you got, Paul?
Well, what I was thinking is after Ivan Toney and after the amazing penalties that England scored, and then at the weekend, Ivan Toney did something I'd never seen, and that is the no-look penalty.
Well, he didn't see it either.
Well, I know that someone told him it had gone in, but the thing is, that's what he does. So what I'm going to actually try is a no-look sports news.
Okay.
I'm like that the whole time. And I'm the thing is, if I went up and took a penalty.
Yes.
No, look, I would fall over on the way there.
Yeah.
So he's, like, on his way there, looking, and I don't know whether the whole point is that it throws the keeper, because, you know, when you get... well,
it gives them no idea. It gives them no... the keeper has no idea where...
Yeah, so it throws the eyes. So it's like, do you look in the eyes of the penalty taker if you're a keeper? I know I'm getting deep into this.
Well, I just don't know how you aim, personally.
Well, that's it.
That's like the key bit.
You've got to know, and then...
You've got to know where the keeper is, if they're moving in or what, I don't know.
Yeah.
You do look at the eyes of the keeper, or not the penalty taker.
So when you're in goal, you'd be looking at the eyes.
Well, it's one of the things you'll do. You look at the eyes, you look at the feet.
Yeah.
You look back up at the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the secret is that instead of if the penalty taker is a no-look penalty taker, how about being a no-look goalkeeper? So you stand there like that. And
you do it on sound.
It's just a few ideas.
No.
Like Lewis Hamilton we should talk about.
Yeah.
We've spoken in the week about sporting greats. We've got Sir Mark Cavendish, who broke the record there at the Tour de France with his 35th stage win. Sir Andy Murray as well. And the other one, really the big three, Sir Lewis Hamilton. And it was a magnificent race and a magnificent British Grand Prix yesterday. And it shows that he's still got it. No victory in 945 days, and that's since the Saudi Grand Prix back in 2021. Then things went a little pear-shaped to Abu Dhabi when he should have won the title. Hadn't won since then, and it's his 9th British Grand Prix win, which is a record. No driver has ever won so many Grand Prix on one track, and that is for him at Silverstone. It was a masterclass of driving. Team tactics from McLaren were perfect as well because of the weather. Sunny, then rain, then sunny, then rain. I mean, he's magnificent when it comes to rain, so that helped him because that's how he wanted it. And it really was a terrific performance by him.
Unlike the way he was dressed casually yesterday. So,
well, funny enough, he did no-look dressing that day.
He's wearing a sort of gown. I don't know how you would describe it, but
it's like a cape jacket, isn't I don't know.
Disgusting, basically.
Yeah.
Right, let's go to Germany. Let's catch up with what's going on there. To Dusseldorf. Jack Carson ahead of the England-Holland game on Wednesday. Jack, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning to you both. I mean, Dusseldorf High Street this morning. This is the old town part of Dusseldorf. Very quiet compared to what it was on Saturday night, of course, when England won their quarter-final against Switzerland. I mean, according to the UK Footballing Policing Unit, they reckon there were around 25,000 England fans at the game in Dusseldorf, 1,000 spread across this city watching the game. I mean, we were down here that evening watching the game with the fans, with the sports bars and all the bars that were open here. This place was absolutely packed, and everything, of course, was nerve-wracking. I mean, the full 90 minutes was nerve-wracking. England did look better, of course, than they had done in previous games so far in this tournament. Gareth Southgate said it was probably their best performance yet, and we were looking once again, weren't we, for that individual moment of brilliance. Last time in the round of 16, it was Jude Bellingham with that overhead kick, and of course this time it was Bukayo Saka who earned his redemption, of course, because, you know, he played very well in the first game, the first group game, but we hadn't maybe really seen how good he really can be. So, you know, for the rest of the games in the tournament, but he stepped up when it needed, and that's very much how this England team is getting through. I said yesterday, talking about the game, it feels like England have been taking lessons from Harry Houdini. We've started to become the great escape artist, because when you go 1-0 down like we did on Saturday against Switzerland in the 75th minute when Briel Mbolo scored, it's hard with just 15 minutes of the game to pick yourself up, to be able to get yourself out of that rut and out of that feeling, of course, when you go behind so late in the game. But we managed to do it, and of course those penalties, I mean, talk about no fingernails left. It was so nerve-wracking, but the whole place here went crazy. The fans were up in the air. I was up in the air. Somebody lifted me up and I was flying around all over the place, but it was great fun. And England now go, of course,
to lift
to
you
Dortmund.
up, I would have thought. But anyway, Jack, thank you. I want to bring in Paul.
It's a bit strong. I'm sorry, Jack. I'm sorry
Four
about
people.
that.
Four people.
It was him, it wasn't us.
The situation on Saturday night, I mean, you know, Jack's saying there that, you know, England and the Houdini Act and whatever it is, they're not good enough. They don't play good enough. They've got all the players to put it right.
Yep.
And when they string it together, it looks brilliant. But there's a caution there, and I presume the caution's from the coach.
Yeah, I think so. It's again, here it comes again. It's got to be the momentum. Last time, I remember the great time that we played the Netherlands in knockout football, that would have been in Euro 96. That's when it really did come together. That was when that was an incredible 4-1. Maybe, I don't know the spirits of that, but it seems to paper over the cracks because, as Jack mentioned, Jude Bellingham scored that amazing overhead kick, and then everybody was thinking about that. We go to penalties. Everybody thinks about the penalties, how great the penalties were. It's that 90 minutes before. It was better. It was a little bit better, but it needs to get better than that.
But you see, you would have thrown anything at the opposition rather than go to penalties, I would have thought, because penalties will always favour the team that is less in charge, because they'll have an equal chance.
I don't think it is equal. I think when it comes to penalties, I think we saw that, how confident... It's interesting when they were talking about the way that they trained for penalties.
Yeah.
People shouting around, because you can never replicate, ever. It's the same as with the Olympics or anything, because Adam Peaty does it when he walks to a swimming pool and has the noise of crowds in his, to try and replicate exactly what it's like. You can't. Yeah. So they've tried everything, but the penalties, they did look so comfortable and so confident. And when you've got players with that ability, I don't think it is lottery. And I was certain, I really was, that we would win that on penalties. I really did think that was going to happen, because they just look so good, the way they just walked up.
How can you say that? Switzerland, they had a very good save, right, from the England keeper at the start. But if he hadn't have saved that, they would have scored all theirs.
Yeah, of course, but I just think... I wouldn't
want to go to penalties. I wouldn't want to.
Oh, it was...
Unless I was the poorer team.
Unless you're the poorer team, yeah, because it stands, it gives you a chance. I think we're at the point where let's just get rid of the extra time, can't see the point in extra time. If you play 90 minutes,
Yeah.
surely that should be enough.
Yeah.
And go to penalties.
Yeah.
I know people hate penalties, but I think it's a great way of winning a football game. For watching it, the tension, you know what it's like, and you're on the edge of your seat. It's so exciting, and I think it is fair. I think it's fair as well.
Speaking of edge of the seat and exciting, I mean, it was exciting to see Emma Raducanu in the centre court yesterday, but it was devastating.
What was exciting to see Emma Raducanu?
She played so well in the previous match. She was absolutely superb, and she looked really promising, and it just all fell apart.
Number what in the world? What is she? 200.
Isabel is 2 above her,
Yes.
2 or 3 below.
I could beat Emma Raducanu.
No. She won a slam.
It's a strange one, isn't it? I wonder how we'd be feeling about Emma Raducanu had she not won that US Open and she'd be climbing the ladder. I mean, of course, we always get behind British players. She wasn't good yesterday. I mean, and you saw it, Isabel, didn't you? And I saw it as well. And there's too many unforced errors that we just keep seeing.
When was she last good? The American Open?
I think she was last good in her last game. I do. I thought she looked really good.
She was really good.
I think
Everyone
something's
was
going to
talking
change.
about it, 100%.
But the big controversy, of course, is about Andy Murray, and this is really kicked off.
She was to play with him in the mixed doubles.
She's going to play with him in the mixed doubles, decided the night before, so it was supposed to be Saturday night, that actually she had a sprain, her wrist wasn't comfortable, so then that was going to be the last hurrah for Andy Murray, although, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Andy Murray had the big goodbye at that doubles game, and then they had the interview with Sue Barker, and if he'd have come back out again for the mixed doubles, she decided, I mean, she had bigger fish to fry, unfortunately.
He'd have
when it
done the
comes to
same in
singles.
reverse, I think.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
have to put yourself
I
first.
think
But
you
she
would
got
have
to the same stage in Wimbledon as she did just before she won the same year at the US Open. So don't write her off yet, I say. I think she's making a comeback after her
21
injuries.
years.
Yeah.
Eamonn, let's give her another 10
I'll
years.
give her another
I'm just stunned listening to Isabel. Don't write her off yet. Write her off for what?
For winning another slam.
Now that is funny. That is funny.
Oh, now come on, that's a little strong.
No, listen, you can all do this. You're not being patriotic or whatever. She's not very good. She's not good. End of. I've said it right from the start. I'm proved right throughout the whole thing, and it's not going to change. She's not
Just
very
short
good.
of quarterfinals.
She's not going to win
Wimbledon.
anything.
I think it's going to be tough for her to win another slam. I think it's unfair to say she's no good, but I think it's going to be tough
It
for
would
her
be unfair
reach
to
the high
say
seas.
you're no good, but you know they're those.
Listen, I know I'm no good, but I can do no-look sports news, so I'll just be like...
See you later, alligator.
OK.
Making the news, we've got Dawn Neeson and we've got Chris Akabusi, and they're
Now they're
coming in
good.
next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M9 in Stirling, there's a lane closed southbound between junctions 9 and 8 from the M80 at Bannockburn to the M876 after an accident yesterday lunchtime. There's disruption to some ScotRail services this morning because of a shortage of staff, with trains not calling at Airbles, Barnhill, Alexandra Parade or Duke Street stations. Most stagecoach bus services on Merseyside aren't running today because of industrial action. The M11 in Cambridgeshire, the northbound exit is partly blocked by a breakdown at junction 10 at Duxford. In London, the A504 is closed along West Green Road, south of Turnpike Lane Station. And there's fire services activity. And on the North Circular in London, there's a lane closed eastbound where a manhole's collapsed between the 4th Street Tunnel at Edmonton and the Kenning Hall interchange. In East Sussex, the A259 is closed along Wallsend Road at Pevensey. There's a level crossing failure. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Prince Harry, he's been opening up about the death of his mother, Princess Diana, while speaking to the founder of armed forces charity, Scotty's Little Soldiers.
Well, the Duke of Sussex joined 50 children who were being supported by the charity and urged youngsters to open up about their grief, saying, if you suppress it forever, it will eat you away inside.
Well, let's speak to our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker, who joins us in the studio. Cameron, Prince Harry has spoken quite a lot about grief and bereavement from his mother's passing and the trauma he had. Did he say anything new that we haven't heard before?
And the difference here was, instead of kind of talking about himself, which clearly we've heard a lot of in the last 3 years from Prince Harry with his memoir Spare and the Netflix series, I could go on, he was putting the spotlight back on the charity and on Nikki and her story. So it was almost like having the old Prince Harry Harry back, and also thinking about like what could have been if he didn't step back as a working member of the royal family.
That's so fascinating. In many ways, he was sort of stepping into his old role in this. It was sort of performing a duty that he would have done back before the days of Megxit.
It is kind of like before the days of Megxit. He's been heavily involved in the charity for a good decade now, but when he came back for the Invictus Games celebration commemorations of the 10 years of Invictus last month, he spent time with 50 or so children, and he talks about how first instinct of a child when they lose a parent in awful circumstances such as that is, I have to be really sad for the rest of my life. And he talks about how those children who've lost parents through conflict feel like that, and how actually it's okay to be happy again later on in life when you've had the support and realising that the parent you've lost would want you to be happy later on. So that's the message Prince Harry was trying to get across here.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Chris Akabusi and Dom Neeson talking about the front pages of the papers. Let's see some of these. First of all, the Times leads with the new government's plans to slash the green belt to increase house building. All of it panic sounding, but not as bad as it sounds.
The Telegraph also opening with those plans, the goal of building 1.5 million homes in 5 years.
Guardian reports on the French elections and the surprise surge in support for Emmanuel Macron's centre-left party that helped ward off the far right.
Here's the Express. They're outlining their very own manifesto in a direct challenge to the new government.
The Mirror echoes the new Chancellor Rachel Reeves promising to make every Briton better off. We'll be talking to her later this morning and finding out how exactly she plans to do that. And joining us to go through what is making those news stories, Don Neeson and Chris Akabusi. Very nice to see you guys.
Morning.
Don, how would you like to sum up the Labour win and the tour of the four nations that the Prime Minister is going on?
I quite like the fact that it's unifying. Rather than the countries of Great Britain, United Kingdom fighting against one another, I think I quite like what he's doing, to be honest with you. You know what? And look, we've been through the election. It felt like it went on for ages. I just think now we all need to work together, which is what he's doing, to actually improve things rather than tearing one another apart, which we've spent so long doing in politics.
It was really interesting hearing Oscar say that at 6 o'clock, saying that actually, almost as a nation, we're almost a bit traumatised from the last few years of endless elections, lots of shocks, lots of fighting. Whether you voted for him or not, perhaps a period of just not talking about elections is welcome in this country, anyway.
I mean, I think actually watching him, he has performed much better for me in the last 2 days as Prime Minister than he did in the run-up to becoming Prime Minister. And I get the sense that, right, OK, now I am in it. It's not a dream. I am now PM. And you can see, actually, there's a lot of work that's gone on in the background for a day just as this. Now, all of a sudden, he's stepping into and looks quite prime ministerial. I think if you look at the last 5 years of the Conservative regime, it's here, there, piggly, upside down, infighting, prevarication, and you just get that sense. And it's the unifying factor, very prime ministerial, looks good.
I thought he began to look very prime ministerial outside number 10, right after those pictures were taken. That first
absolutely.
He gave.
I can just see the weight off his shoulder. Now let's get on with it. And across the whole board, you can see, let's get on with it. Rolling up the sleeves. And they're getting on with it.
It must be quite exciting as well. It's like you've got this whole opportunity, this wealth of opportunity, so much that needs doing. I mean, you wouldn't go home, would you? Just roll up your sleeves and get on with it.
What happened to having all this Friday night off? I don't think he had Friday night.
Friday night was a little bit. The thing is that the Prime Minister started off by telling a little bit of a porky pie, didn't he? I'm having Friday night off, and there was working through the night, working on Saturday morning. But, I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Chris, let's talk about this. It's on the front of the Times and the Telegraph, this house building target that they've set, 1.5 million in the next 5 years. And they're talking, and this is a phrase that he's coined, about the grey belt, which is areas of the green belt that Starmer has decided are unsightly and are opportune for development. What do we think about this?
Well, again, I mean, it's Rachel Reeves who is leading on this. And, again, it's unequivocal, in command, in control. You can trust us. Now, whether this actually happens, we're going to say what we're going to do, and then we're going to do what we've said we're going to do. You get that sense, you know, she's meeting in the city today. Remember the word strong and stable from a previous person? But, you know, the sense of strong and stable, that the markets can trust us, business can trust us, employers and employees can trust us. And like you said now, this building programme, we're going to get this country... Because building, actually, is a very good way of stimulating the economy, because everything...
Is it going to happen? Because, I mean, local councils have to officially designate these grey areas that are ripe for development. They're going to be 50% of those are going to be affordable, which means for developers there's instantly a disincentive. You know, they're going to, even if they rip up the rule book, there are still going to be problems.
I think the problem Labour have is their majority. The fact that they've got so many MPs now representing hugely different parts of the country. Many MPs in the southeast for the first time representing the leafy green areas where planning restrictions have been fought against for a long time, you know, sort of like encouraged for a long, long time. I think they're going to have a lot of dissent from MPs representing those areas, MPs representing more inner city, urban areas where it's not such a big deal, the planning issue. And I think they're going to have a lot of dissent because they have got this huge majority.
Well, it depends what you mean by leafy green. There's a difference between fields and trees. I think trees have got to be protected and do things. I think farming land, which is just giving over acreage to growing things, shouldn't be protected as much. And
I think the problem when you say green belt, people instantly think of, as you say, trees. I mean, sort of like our national parks and places of outstanding natural beauty. But a lot of the green belt is actually, as you say, scrubland and semi-derelict areas now. So.
Some of the challenges you have, though, with that green belt, you can see where I mean, I live near the Milton Keynes Bletchley area, and you can see Milton Keynes Bletchley really encroaching into the countryside villages. So much so that, you know, Great Brick Hill, which is a lovely, ancient, small village, you can see all of a sudden being overpowered by this sprawling metropolis.
Which is not a good thing.
Not a good thing, no. It's not a good thing.
And you have these beautiful historic market towns that are sort of boarded up because there's hardly any shops, but then you see the main arteries, the roads in and out, getting these huge single-rise factories being built.
And the distribution centres. So where I live, distribution centres everywhere. You can see where we're going as far as the new economy is concerned, that you'll stay at home and everything's going to be sent to you because, I mean, up the A5, massive loads of distribution centres are being built.
So are you saying not in my backyard?
No, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that I can understand the squabbles around Greenbelt being built on, because that's where it ends in the end, on your backyard.
But surely, if we were sitting down, if all of us were sitting down and allocating planning areas and building areas, between us, we would think, well, we'll dedicate the right areas, we'll protect those villages you're talking about, and anywhere where there's a big, you know, squalid fields going on for miles, that could be good, that could be done. Yeah. But why does common sense not prevail in these things?
Because money gets involved.
Yeah.
Well, and history gets involved as well. You know, that's historical land. It's, you know, been in the family for the last 1,000 years. So you know that you know, there's those contentions as well.
And you know, water was talked about a lot in the election, wasn't it? And the effect on our waterways of sewage and all of these things, and that's related to house building. Because we've seen the big row about this thing called nutrient neutrality, and lots of house builders complaining that they have to reach certain regulations, otherwise they're pumping all this rubbish into the waters. If they're ripping up the rule books, making it easier to build houses, will there be an ecological impact? And are we OK with that, given that we know that our rivers are already so fragile?
But they've got to build houses. How else do they build houses? I mean, we have a huge housing deficit in this country, which has has to be put right, and we have an appalling, disgusting lack of social housing that has to be addressed.
Totally. But I mean, you look at some of the areas where we have managed to build new housing, and what we're not doing to go with it is the infrastructure. We're building the houses, we're not building the schools, we're not building the hospitals,
100%.
we're not building the transport systems.
So what about repurposing a lot of the shopping? You know, so if you're going to Leighton Buzzard, for example, so many shops that are boarded up.
Yeah.
Well, repurposing them as housing.
Yeah, and it's a lovely place. Built-in community straight away.
100%.
Because you've got all the facilities on your doorstep. I think a lot more could be done to change from sort of business use to domestic use, or whatever it might be. Lots of ideas anyway, if they wanted to call them.
If anyone's listening, here we're here.
Catherine Foster is one of our reporters here, and an absolutely awful scenario for her last week, where two sons were hiking or climbing a volcano, and they are Matt and Andrew, 22 and 18. And what happened to them, Isabel?
Well, Catherine had been, as we know, covering the election campaign out on the battle buses, speaking to us every morning. And on, the culmination of that all on Thursday morning, she had got a call late the night before to say that both of her sons had gone missing, lost phone contact, been in touch with nobody for something like 40 hours. She said it was the worst day of her life, expected the worst. Luckily, a friend that they'd made, a Swedish girl, reported them missing. And all reports are that the British Embassy and the consulate were absolutely incredible, sent guides out there, and they were found using Bear Grylls' survival skills that they gleaned from the Scouts and from watching Bear Grylls videos. And they were very, very weak and in a serious condition, but were alive. So she said it went from the worst day of her life to the best day.
They were actually climbing up 3,000-metre Mount Ajung, which is the tallest volcano in Bali. And it is, lots of people do trek up it to watch the sunrise. It's not an unheard-of thing to do. But they did it without a guide, and they obviously got caught out, and their mobile phone batteries ran out as well. And, we all know and love Catherine, and that you can imagine, especially with Jay Slater being in the news all the time.
Especially as journalists, we hear these horror stories.
Yes, it's like children go missing, and it's like, it must have been absolutely horrible for her.
Well, we actually heard the news, didn't we? We were doing the election programme, and it was a sort of secret within the newsroom, but our blood went cold. We were absolutely devastated to hear it. She said her friends dropped everything they were doing, cancelled their work, everybody descended on her house. And she said it was actually the young using all of their social media apps and
I saw that,
to establish lots of communication.
Talking of social media, the thing that annoyed me, I sort of put a message out to Catherine on social media going, so glad the boys are home, etc, etc. And someone instantly said, well, what were they doing up a mountain? I mean, all those resources you used. And it's like,
OK, let me raise a point here. We have how many stories are we reading about people going hiking, going walking, going on their own, going without power in their phone battery, whatever it is? Why the heck do people bother doing that? Listen, you see, when I ever go missing, I won't be on my own and I won't be lying dead with no power on my phone. I just don't...
I nearly died up a mountain on my honeymoon. We nearly did the same thing.
I mean, the power on a phone can happen anywhere, anytime, but it is the idea, what you said there, about going up to these dangerous places. We get a sense of safety and security in our beautiful built environment in the United Kingdom, and don't really appreciate nature, how quickly it can turn.
So we will come back to you and sort that out and continue the conversation.
It wasn't that we were bored.
How can we just shut up?
Shut the mic up, shut the mic. Cut his mic. No, I completely understand. I mean, when I was younger, I used to go mountaineering, and it's just the best feeling in the world. But I do, I'm just so glad that the boys are back safe and sound. But I mean, everyone.
Do we know how they were found?
They were literally found by the rescue team, and they were absolutely because...
He was expecting to find them dead.
Yeah, exactly. 30 hours.
No, you can't talk.
I don't think they can hear you.
Can we hear you? Can we hear him?
No, sorry, Chris, you're out for a minute.
We'll send someone in.
Sure, it was very interesting what you had to say.
We can hear your laugh, but that's on my microphone.
I would like to mention volunteer rescue workers as well. They have to do all of this, and they have to be funded, and they have to rely on donations and that sort of thing. And a lot of them, have to rescue a lot of Egypts
honestly,
who
Eamonn,
often, they go walking in the middle of snowdrifts and things like this.
I did a job once many years ago working with the mountain rescue up in Scotland, where you're going up Ben Nevis and the Nevis Range and places like that. You get the most horrific weather conditions, and it can change just like that. And we actually ended up rescuing. I mean, I was just covering the story, rescuing someone who'd literally walked up there in flip-flops.
Flip-flops?
Flip-flops and an umbrella, and they thought that was acceptable to climb one of the tallest mountains in Scotland. It was just like, what on earth are you doing? So, yeah, people can be stupid, but most people do it sensibly.
But thank goodness rescued in this particular
Matthew and
case.
Andrew. She said she's given them a good talking to.
And you know Catherine, and she would.
Thank you. Guys, see you again in about 45 minutes' time. We're going to give you a weather update now. Jonathan Vaughtry, we say good morning to him.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If it's prolonged summery weather that you're after, I'm afraid this week is not going to provide it for everyone. Whilst most of us have a slack pressure pattern to start off Monday, increasingly our attention will turn to this area of low pressure that is very slowly pushing its way in from the southwest. Already starting to see some rain into the likes of Devon and Cornwall, and increasingly that will begin to spread its way in elsewhere as well. Winds strengthening 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts possible around some exposed coastal areas, turning quite dull and grey here. Elsewhere, there is a decent amount of sunshine to start off the day, but we will start to see some showers developing later on. In the sunshine, though, actually pleasantly warm, 19 to 21 degrees Celsius. Feeling very cold, though, underneath this cloud and rain, more around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius. For your evening rush hour, then, there will be some showers around for Scotland to watch out for. Some of them could be on the heavy side. Just take care as you are travelling home. Again, a few showers for Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England as well. Best of the brightest spells really across this central slice throughout a good portion of the day. Still around 20 degrees Celsius there in Leeds, even at 6 o'clock. But it is going to be a much wetter conditions as we end the day here across the far southwest, turning heavier as that rain begins to push its way in. Some very low cloud as well, turning murky. Really not a pleasant end to Monday at all. And that band of rain will slowly push its way into Wales, central areas of England, skirting into Northern Ireland and perhaps the far southwest of Scotland as we move closer towards Tuesday. Quite mild underneath all that cloud, though. Temperatures not dropping much below 13, 14 degrees Celsius, but a chillier start across the far northwest of Scotland. And it is this area that will see the best of the sunshine, really, right throughout Tuesday, managing to stay driest. Elsewhere, it is going to be a very unsettled day to come. Some heavy pulses, perhaps even some thunderstorms developing around the southeastern areas at times. Car feeling humid in amongst all of that, highs of 21 degrees Celsius, but still not the most pleasant of days.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Summer could be a scorcher, with your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. It's totally tax-free, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M9 in Stirling, the inside lanes closed southbound from junction 9 for the M80 to 8 for the M876 after an accident yesterday. There are some cancelled ScotRail services in Glasgow because of a shortage of staff. Most stagecoach bus services in Liverpool aren't running because of industrial action. On the M11 in Cambridgeshire, the northbound exit at junction 10 at Duxford is partly blocked by a breakdown. In London, the A504 is closed along West Green Road, south of Turnpike Lane Station because of fire services activity. activity, and also in London on the North Circular, there's a lane closed eastbound where a manhole's collapsed between the 4th Street tunnel at Edmonton and the Kenning Hall interchange, causing delays. On the M26 in Kent, there are long westbound delays approaching the M25 because of roadworks. And in East Sussex, the A259 is blocked where the level crossing gates are stuck on Wallsend Road in Pevensey. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The new Prime Minister hits the ground running on a tour of the British nations.
And we hit the ground running for you this morning. He will visit all those nations and he'll try to reset relationships with Westminster.
The brand new Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, prepares to make her first major speech today and will announce an overhaul of planning rules to get Britain building.
Surviving Conservatives jostle for the leadership as the election post-mortem gets underway.
And France is facing a hung parliament this morning as the left-wing coalition halts the rise of Marine Le Pen's national rally. But what does this mean for President Macron?
The Prince of Wales's campaign to stop homelessness is set to take centre stage in a new documentary later this year.
And in the sport, Lewis Hamilton won his 9th British Grand Prix yesterday. It's nearly his first in nearly 3 years. Was Emma Raducanu distracted by the flack from Anne Diamond after pulling out of the mixed doubles with Andy Murray yesterday, or was she just not good enough? Yeah, she wasn't good enough. And Walter the orangutan has predicted the England-Holland result.
As the search for summer continues, unfortunately this week is going to be providing more of the opposite with rain on its way. Join me later for all of the details.
Well, the time 1 minute past 7 o'clock on this Monday morning. Good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster and this is GB News Breakfast.
He was in Scotland yesterday. He's in Belfast today. The Prime Minister carries on with his tour of the UK as he tries to reset the relationship between Westminster and the devolved nations.
Well, yesterday he met with First Minister John Swinney in Edinburgh, and today the PM heads to Northern Ireland and Wales before returning to England to meet with a group of cross-party mayors.
Now, it comes as the new government gets straight to work. This morning, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is to give her first major speech as she promises to rip up planning rules and get Britain building.
Well, joining us now is the former advisor to Boris Johnson, Oscar Redrock. Good morning to you, Oscar. Hit the ground running is going to be the most overused phrase of the day, isn't it? But they are fully in honeymoon period anyway and trying to make a mark just as quickly as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit the ground running, reset, work starts here. These are all the phrases you're going to see chucked about by the Labour government. It's completely fair enough. They have been very outwardly proactive over the last few days. It does slightly remind me, all this touring around and, people going in their departments, pointing at things, saying, oh, it's really wrong and we're going to drastically change things. It does slightly remind me of, someone in the office who, when the boss walks past, starts just clapping away at their keyboard, trying to look busy. I think that's completely fair enough at this moment in time, but people have such high expectations of this Labour government. They very skillfully, from a campaigning perspective, pointed at the problems that are in this country. it's kind of all they've done, you could say, over the last couple of years, and people are going to want to see those delivered results very, very, very fast.
And the big one that they scrapped over the weekend is this Rwanda scheme, and they're going to face a problem with that instantly, virtually, aren't they? With the crossings, peaking over the summer. Yvette Cooper going to put together some legislation, and when are we expecting a King's speech and all the rest of this to come forward?
Yeah, well, ministers are not supposed to kind of preempt policy that goes on in the King's speech, but, if there isn't something hugely tangible and concrete on immigration, then the pressure from reform, and once the Conservative Party gets its act together, will be intense. And I know it's all very well and good, Labour saying Rwanda, it's a gimmick, it's a gimmick, it's a gimmick. But, the commander task force, special unit forces, blah, 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 that, Yvette Cooper's been talking about today. I mean, that sounds pretty gimmicky to me as well. I'm pretty sure something similar already exists.
Can I talk about something gimmicky? We're seeing a Range Rover there. Fine. That wasn't when they went to see the King. I don't know when that happened, but when he left there, he left in an Audi with a massive grille with the massive Audi badge on it, which I think was absolutely appalling. Whoever thinks of promoting this country, why would you stick an Audi for the Prime Minister's first appearance?
That is a really interesting spot, and I haven't seen.
Honestly,
yeah.
Absolutely, I look and I see how the French use Citroën, and the Germans use, Mercedes and whatever it is, and we put a bloomin' Audi, which has been very nice to travel in, but advertising the country and what the country does, no.
Apparently, is Land Rover still British? Range Rover?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was.
I tell you what, Eamonn, and I'm sure, you watch all these political shows, you see all the kind of, Twitter. I've not seen that spotted yet. So I think you've kind of... you've got a little news story there.
I'm going mad.
No. Yeah.
I mean, you say is Land Rover still British? That's a good point. Is it Indian?
Apparently, it's designed and built here, but it is owned by Indians. So, it's very hard to work out. Volvo, Swedish.
But that I think an Audi is. I mean, come on.
The most massive grill on it. It annoyed me. From massive grills to massive grins, let's go to Dougie Beattie in Belfast. He's going to join this conversation now. I don't know if the Prime Minister's there yet or what time you're expecting, Douglas.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Stormont. Yes, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, will arrive here in Stormont very shortly, and he will be meeting, first of all, Edmund Poots, the Speaker of the House, then moving to the First Minister, Deputy First Minister, and then having independent meetings with all the parties here. Now, of course, there has been a problem with the Northern Ireland government. We've seen it down for 2 years, and then over the framework document. But of course, if Labour decide to become closer to Europe, most of those problems will probably go away. But he's also got a problem in Northern Ireland. If you remember, we've spoke on it on many different occasions, is over the historical inquiries. In fact, the Irish government have a case going through the courts at the moment over legacy issues. And of course, the last Labour government gave out those letters of comfort and Queen's pardons of mercy to the IRA to make sure that they wouldn't appear in court. And now, of course, he's going to arrive here and he will be questioned on that today if he's going to do away with the Tories' legacy proposals that they had. What is going to replace it? And families here, especially of serving veterans of the Troubles here, will be asking, well, does that mean that we will be able to get our day in court to find out what happened to our loved ones? That comes on the back of the Canova inquiry that was looking at collusion between the IRA and British forces. So he has all that on his plate when he arrives. I wouldn't like to be him today when he comes here, because those will definitely be things that are being questioned. And of course, Northern Ireland's biggest industry is agriculture. The Labour Party very much in favour, as they are in Wales, of putting land 20% into greening, and now they're talking about vesting land. There's lots here to be discussed, and if he wants to see a secure and stable government in Northern Ireland, those meetings will have to be more than handshakes and something meaningful indeed.
I want to get some reaction from Oscar here on what you're talking about those historical inquiries there, which mean a lot to a lot of people in Ireland, Oscar. But in England, it's quite the reverse because it's seen as an act of betrayal against serving soldiers and things in England. But what's your view on this? It does make a difference that there's now not a Conservative government.
I think it probably does. I think it, in terms of, I don't want to use the word kind of bringing down the temperature, but, and again, we're kind of regurgitating the reset narrative, but that does probably create a bit of space. I think the report that just came in there, I think the key line at the end, and that's something that should be ringing Keir Starmer's ears, actually, is not just handshakes. You know, that kind of, we turn up, we do some nice handshakes. You know, there'll be something substantive that I think, I mean, you'll know better than me, Eamonn, that people will probably want evidence of in time, rather than...
And I think there'll be a change on the political axis as well.
Yeah.
Douglas, just to get your view on this, there will be, I mean, he's visiting Belfast today, Stormont, but there will be repercussions for the relationship between the Irish government and the British government, which I would imagine would become warmer or closer than it has been. What do you think?
Well, it has to be, Eamonn, because, of course, if we look at what's happening in France, we look at what's happening across Europe, they are very much swinging to a more centre-right position, whereas Ireland is very liberal, very socialist, and it will find its closest ally will actually be this Labour government that's coming to power. So you can only imagine that relations there will become warmer because of the political thinking of both those parties. But there will be questions asked here, especially from the unionist communities, as to, is Keir Starmer going to allow immigrants to come across the border because there no longer is a Rwanda deal? There's a lot of fear in that, and really reset the culture of Northern Ireland as it has done in the Republic. And there'll also be lots of problems in and around, as I've said, those historical inquiries. And Keir Starmer must, the Prime Minister must at this stage, be very strong in that, especially in and around the Oma bombing inquiry and so forth, pushing the Republic of Ireland to get involved in those type of situations so as people here can have answers to age-old questions.
Thank you very much indeed for that.
Final thought from you, Oscar. We have to mention the Conservatives. They've gone pretty quiet. Lots of the papers speculating about who might be lining themselves up for the leadership role. Obviously, we saw Suella Braverman out and about yesterday, the phrase out on manoeuvres. I get the sense they're going to leave it for a good while and perhaps, you know, even could leave it as long as the autumn.
Well, it has to happen, really, you'd think, before kind of party conference season starts. I think in terms of the runners and riders, some people probably don't learn the lessons that history always throws up, which is do not get overexcited, do not move too quickly. This has been obviously a pretty devastating time for the Conservative Party, and people that kind of look too keen and eager. You know, there are colleagues and friends who have lost jobs. You know, I'm not just talking about MPs, I'm talking about staff. And, you know, people who kind of jump on that grave, if you like, too quickly and start, you know, showing off. And it's distasteful at best, and at worst, strategically really poor. It'd be interesting to know who your viewers would probably favour lining up.
I mean, Suella Braverman's not being backed by Danny Kruger this morning. He's going for Robert Jenrick. It feels to me like it might be Kemi Badenoch versus Robert Jenrick. Interesting to see Victoria Atkins there. She was the former
very impressive.
Bit of a unity centre, moderate candidate. Former father was a big politician in the Conservative Party as well. So there's history there.
My kind of 2 pence is do not get too bogged down on left or right of the party and ideology. Get bogged down on who is actually got the best ideas and you know, will take the task to the Labour Party the best, and obviously bring back Boris. Had to just get that in there.
Oscar, thanks. I appreciate all of that. Nice talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. Look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom on this Monday morning. Yvette Cooper, who's the new Home Secretary, has set out the first steps towards setting up a UK Border Security Command. The idea is to reduce small boat crossings after the Prime Minister scrapped the Rwanda scheme. She says a major upgrade in law enforcement is needed to stop illegal channel crossings.
The UK's new Defence Secretary has pledged to step up the UK's support for Ukraine on a visit to Odessa. Only days into the job, John Healey has already met with President Zelensky and announced a new package of support for the country.
And the King has met with the men's West Indies cricket team ahead of their first Test match against England at Lord's on Wednesday. He also used the opportunity to express his concern for those affected by Hurricane Beryl. With the weather situation, another mixed bag over the weekend.
The sky looked beautiful, didn't it, out there in Northern Ireland this morning? Lovely pink sky behind Doogie Beatty.
Pink sky?
It was sort of a pinky sunrise, yeah. And actually, I had a lovely sunrise as I was driving in, but it's going to be mixed. And yesterday was just dreadful. I hung some washing in the morning, and I kept thinking, well, I'll leave it up because the sun will come out in a minute, and then it'll dry it out. And the sun came out, and then the rain, and then in the end, I just gave up and brought the washing in.
Well, I was in Manchester, and I arrived in Manchester, and it was beautifully sunny. It was lovely, and then it became very cloudy and overcast,
like night time, yeah.
And then 5 minutes out of Manchester, it was bright the whole way down the M6. Bright
all the way home
to London, all the way home. Yeah. So, what's it going to do today? Jonathan Vautry will tell you.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If it's prolonged summery weather that you're after, I'm afraid this week is not going to provide it for everyone. Whilst most of us have a slack pressure pattern to start off Monday, increasingly our attention will turn to this area of low pressure that is very slowly pushing its way in from the southwest. Already starting to see some rain into the likes of Devon and Cornwall, and increasingly that will begin to spread its way in elsewhere as well. Winds strengthening 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts possible around some exposed coastal areas, turning quite dull and grey here. Elsewhere, there is a decent amount of sunshine to start off the day, but we will start to see some showers developing later on. In the sunshine, though, actually pleasantly warm, 19 to 21 degrees Celsius. Feeling very cold, though, underneath this cloud and rain, more around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius. For your evening rush hour, then, there will be some showers around for Scotland to watch out for. Some of them could be on the heavy side. Just take care as you are travelling home. Again, a few showers for Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England as well. Best of the brightest spells really across this central slice throughout a good portion of the day. Still around 20 degrees Celsius there in Leeds, even at 6 o'clock. But it is going to be a much wetter conditions as we end the day here across the far southwest, turning heavier as that rain begins to push its way in. Some very low cloud as well, turning murky. Really not a pleasant end to Monday at all. And that band of rain will slowly push its way into Wales, central areas of England, skirting into Northern Ireland and perhaps the far southwest of Scotland as we move closer towards Tuesday. Quite mild underneath all that cloud, though. Temperatures not dropping much below 13, 14 degrees Celsius, but a chillier start across the far northwest of Scotland. And it is this area that will see the best of the sunshine, really, right throughout Tuesday, managing to stay driest. Elsewhere, it is going to be a very unsettled day to come. Some heavy pulses, perhaps even some thunderstorms developing around the southeastern areas at times. Feeling humid in amongst all of that, highs of 21 degrees Celsius, but still not the most pleasant of days.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Oh, it is a Monday morning and we're thinking, what is the best way to cheer you up? And that could be the news that the Great British Giveaway is still on the go.
Yeah, and it is great. It's really big. You got 30 grand up for grabs, totally tax-free, so you get the whole lot to do whatever you like with.
And here's how.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, that's food for thought there, and you could be in the money if you enter. Still to come, will the Prince of Wales become King William the Cool?
We'll be discussing that next. I mean, after seeing his dad dancing at Taylor Swift recently, I think not, but let's see.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said Storm.
You made my argument for me. My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Now, it wasn't just us who celebrated the big football match on Saturday. Prince William was in the crowd in Dusseldorf and couldn't help but show his relief when England scored.
And over the weekend, it was also announced that the Prince of Wales is set to star in a new 2-part documentary on ITV covering his mission to try and eradicate homelessness.
Well, let's talk about this and much, much more with Angela Levin, royal biographer, who joins us in the studio. I'm glad to hear that this documentary's been made, Angela, because I worried that he made this big announcement about homelessness and I thought, goodness me, here is somebody who could maybe do something about this. And then it's all seemed to have gone quiet.
He's been very busy with it, actually. He's gone all over the country to see different areas and how they have been, and to try and change people's attitude to homelessness, that they're people who need help and want to get back into a normal life, and he's there to do it. I mean, we mustn't forget that in, I think it was 2009, he slept out in the street to see for himself what it was like. And he also helps people who are selling the magazine...
Big Issue, no?
Yes, the Big Issue. And he's worked all day long with the same man twice now. So I think he was actually just covering the basic about what it was like for him and how he can now help other people. He and Catherine are putting £3 million straight away into that, and it's going to
Where
be...
does that money come from?
Their own foundation, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not taking it from our tax or anybody else's, you know. And there will be a lot more. And he's been getting the money to do this. And I think it's he wants to do this so badly because of his mother. You know, she took them to see people who were homeless, and he's going to take his kids. But each one,
Angela,
when they're ready...
Complicated. It's so complicated because a lot of it isn't just about, oh, this person hasn't got a home or can't afford to rent or buy or whatever it is. So often drugs are associated, alcohol's associated with this. People are not really fit for society, and it's about getting them reintegrated.
Yes, the mental health issue is enormous, actually.
Yeah.
And some people who you want to help can't cope with living inside. I mean, they just are so used to it, and they are tragic people. But I think he's going to bring in all those things that will try to help. And even if he can't do everyone, he can help people be kind and understanding to what people are, not sort of shout at them in the street or anything like that.
Is this an example of what really the Duke and Duchess of Sussex should have done if they wanted to make a TV documentary, was to be, you know, going behind the scenes but doing something noble and worthwhile rather than sort of complaining or whatever it might be. This will be the Prince and Princess of Wales showing that they're making a difference.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're doing everything they can in so many different ways about helping the country and people who need help. But unfortunately, Harry and Meghan do everything that will help them and give them money. I mean, their money... fantastically interested in money and not actually people. And I think Harry, when I went round with him when I was doing his biography, he was marvellous with ex-military people, wonderful with them. But Meghan is very awkward. She's not used to sort of talking to people like that, and I don't think she wants to. I think she thinks, ooh, you know, and so that's very difficult. Their idea is to show off and be wonderful, whereas William and Catherine's are to help. It's not for them, it's to help.
I've always found dealing with homeless people, and this is an awful thing to say, but if you get people who haven't washed or whose hygiene is a problem, it can make a bit of a distance with you. The drug situation is difficult. And I went to a homeless shelter, and basically an ambulance sits permanently outside, and the ambulance is there to really take these people down from overdoses and whatever. They inject them with things to dilute the amount of drugs in their body. And it's not... I think people often think, oh, that's sad because they can't afford a house or whatever.
Complex.
It's complex.
Yeah. It is very complex. I had somebody who sat outside my local station, and she just looked worse and worse. Teeth fell out. But she was quite intelligent and clever. And I actually, I'm not trying to be a goodie, but I took her out several times to a cafe and sort of talked about it all. And I persuaded her to go to a place which would help her stop with the drugs. I didn't see her for a year, and I thought she was probably dead. And she came back, hair done, and she said to me, I'm not doing none of that again. None of it. I can see now, and I've got my children, and I'm going to do none of it. And I saw her for another about 3 years. I don't know what happened after that, because I think the pull of taking drugs is very powerful. But, you know, if you can help people any way...
I do worry, though. I think you're right. The idea he's set this high bar of eradicating homelessness, I just don't know if that's achievable, and not through lack of time.
You can't
I just
do
think
that.
But as Eamonn says, it's such a complex thing.
No,
what about this idea about Prince William as the king of cool? I mean, I cringe earlier at the thought of it, but this is seeing him at the weekend getting down with the lads, watching the football. We saw him on a scooter, didn't we, around Windsor Castle?
Yes.
Apparently, he can just scoot from Adelaide Cottage to go and see whoever's at the castle.
He goes and sees his dad for meetings, and it's about 15 minutes from his own home.
Yeah.
And he goes on this bike. He went incredibly fast. The picture showed him going at a terrible pace. I think Catherine must have been absolutely very anxious because he should have had a helmet on, but he didn't. And I found
traffic round there, though, is there, Angela? I think.
No, you can just slip. It's not a great sort of steady.
Surface,
Yes,
cobblestones,
yes,
things
yes. And I thought that, and actually him at the football was wonderful to see, because there you see someone full of life, full of enthusiasm, doesn't care whether he's going to be the next king or he's just having fun. And he was chewing his fingers, he was, you know, gritting his teeth.
He is a fan. He's obviously a fan, but he's not there because he's a fan. He's there because he's head of the FA.
Well, it's both, actually. It's double.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think that he... there you see a man who is actually natural and himself, and he then can become very dignified as heir to the throne and looking after this amazing country. And I think when you've got that of somebody, he's not pompous, he wasn't showing out, he wasn't sitting there looking. You know, he got really into it, and he cares about England. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really felt that this is a normal... Yes, I thought he allows himself to be normal and to do these things that are really important to him.
Yeah, well, he does that thing of being able to be formal and rising to the sort of state occasions, but also relaxed.
I mean, if you see what he's been like the last few months, he's been very busy and working incredibly hard, and you admire him hugely. But inside, there's this sort of, you know, I'm going to get this type of attitude, which is lovely, I think.
Super. Angela, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much.
Very much indeed. Thank you. Coming up, we've got Jack Carson. He's at the football as well. He's in Germany as England are preparing for that semi-final on Wednesday evening. This is GB News Breakfast. Eamonn and Isabel.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are some cancelled ScotRail services in Glasgow this morning because of a shortage of staff, and most stagecoach bus services around Liverpool aren't running because of industrial action. Deep Mersey Ferry remains suspended because of an ongoing technical problem. In Derbyshire, there are queues on the A38 heading north at Willington because of roadworks. In London, the A504 is closed along West Green Road, south of Turnpike Lane Station because of fire services activity. A couple of things on the North Circular in London. There's a lane closed eastbound where a manhole's collapsed between the 4th Street Tunnel at Edmonton and the Kenninghall interchange. It's slow there, and the North Circular is partly blocked westbound by an accident just after the Harrow Road underpass at Neaston, causing delays on the M26 in Kent. There are along westbound delays towards the M25 because of roadworks, and in East Sussex the A259 is blocked along Wallsend Road in Pevensey where the level crossing barriers are stuck.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, latest sport, Paul Coit, and we've got Jack Carson in Germany as well. So somebody tell me when Jack's available, is he? No, Jack's not available yet. Jack's in Germany, but he's not available.
Yes.
Don't know what he goes there for.
Well, he was lifted up, wasn't he, in the excitement? Someone grabbed hold of Jack and lifted him up as England scored. I don't know whether they were Germans.
Oh, well, let's see that. Let's see this.
I believe that's what happened.
Right. Oh, apparently it's worth waiting for.
Is it worth waiting for?
Yeah.
That Jack kind of held his arms out. Jack, you sort of did this like you'd pick up a baby. You put your hands up there. You wanted to be picked up, didn't you?
Well, I kind of just had to accept it, really, to be honest, Paul.
Yes.
I felt like Bobby Moore when he lifted the Jules Rimet back in '66. But there we go. Maybe, but yeah, it's of course England in the semi-final, their second European Championship semi-final in a row. I mean, Gareth Southgate's been, of course, criticised, hasn't he, over the tournament for maybe not getting England to play, you know, the best that we know they probably should be able to play with the players that we've got. He said that, of course, that quarter-final was their best performance yet, talking about the resilience that it shows, really, to go through a major tournament. He knows that their performances haven't been good enough, but he's been using the criticism that he says that he's got to drive him through, try and get the team to play better. Of course, it took us all the way to that penalty shootout, nerve-wracking, and as you saw from that clip there, in that moment, you just quite literally need to grab anyone you can around you just to support you through that moment. But England, of course, head to Dortmund, where we're going to be a little bit later on as well, of course, as they try and get through to the final, once again, of the European Championships. Netherlands, they know they've also not been playing the best. We've been so lucky on the side of the tournament tree that we've been put with the fact we're not going to have to face, Spain or France till possibly, the final if we're able to get there. But Netherlands will probably be the toughest test that we will come up against. They've got, of course, Cody Gakpo's, who plays on the wing, of course, for Liverpool. He is the joint top scorer at this tournament as well, so he's in form. Of course, we've been missing, the player that we thought would be in form, the player that we thought would be scoring in every game, Harry Kane. He's not looked his best. He's looking like he's carrying some kind of injury. Of course, in that period of extra time, he ended up falling almost into Gareth Southgate, into the dugout, didn't he? So England monitoring him, of course, as they begin once again their preparations for that semi-final. But Ivan Toney looked great when he came on, looked great when he came on in the round of 16, looked great again when he came on in the quarter-final as well. And as you were mentioning, Paul, I mean, the confidence of Ivan Toney to not even look at the ball when he steps up to take a penalty in a European Championship quarter-final.
Well, you know
the
what,
man
Jack?
has got some confidence.
Jack, what we want to know, is there any chance you can find a ball for next time we speak to you in the next hour? Because we can't really demonstrate that here, but I'd love to see you try doing a no-look penalty and just prove how difficult it is. So if you can find us a ball somewhere in Dusseldorf and then do that in an hour, I think we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe just recreate the lifting as well, get someone to pick you up. And,
a whole
you could just
ballet.
win the Euros while you're there, that'd be great.
OK, thanks, Jack. Thank you very much indeed.
Can I just read out your view from Jenny Phibbs? She says, the Netherlands played like rubbish the other night. I think England can do it, but they need to want it more and loosen up.
I think that sounds fair. They do need to loosen up. The thing is, in Dortmund, they've got the Dortmund fans. By the way, Dortmund's a fantastic place, and football fans in Dortmund, whenever I met Dortmund fans, are brilliant. And they have the big yellow wall, where they have all the fans, they're wearing all the yellow for Dortmund. The Netherlands have that end, so they're saying that is going to be advantage to the Netherlands for the game on Wednesday. But we'll just have to see. Yeah, we do need to loosen up a little bit, and I think things are, we may be OK.
How's Wimbledon loosening up?
Well,
it was nearly a hat-trick weekend, wasn't it, with the football, with the F1?
Yes.
Not to be.
Well, with Emma Raducanu, I mean, there's a little controversy about Emma, and this is to do with Andy Murray.
Right.
Now, I know Anne Diamond Anne was livid about it yesterday. So...
OK, explain to me what Anne was livid about.
Anne was livid because Emma Raducanu, there she is, she's playing there against Lulu's son, who she got knocked her out yesterday evening, by the way, who was brilliant.
She looked very comfortable.
She was excellent. Now, Anne was very upset with a lot of people, and also Judy Murray as well, although she'd only written one word on a tweet. The fact that Emma Raducanu was supposed to play mixed doubles with Andy Murray for his final Wimbledon performance. So the day before, Raducanu pulled out and said, I'm sorry, but I've got a bit of a strain on the wrist, and she's going to prioritise her singles match, which is fair enough.
Andy Murray would do the same, I'm sure.
I think so. So Marcus Buckland, who is a friend of mine who works on tennis, had tweeted that it was, it was a strange decision, incredible decision, and then you've got Andy Murray's mum there. Judy came back with a line, and it's all blown up. The fact that and I know that Anne thought it was a disgrace that Emma decided not to play, but. What do you think? You can't. I mean, if you're injured,
they're professional athletes. They're going to put themselves first always, and the doubles is kind of secondary. Like Andy Murray was like, "Shall I play? Shall I not? I'll definitely play later on in the tournament." But he was thinking about his own individual game.
But, did the big goodbye.
Well, it's unfortunate. I got to say goodbye to you. Thank you, my friend.
It's a pleasure. I will get the orangutan, by the way. The orangutan.
All right, do it now. Quick.
You think so?
Yeah.
Go on then. We've got an orangutan in Dortmund Zoo, so it's even in Dortmund. And there he is. And we've done this all the way through. He chooses the bag of food. There's the Dutch bag and there's the English bag. Which one is he going to go to? That's Walter. Walter could do with a haircut.
Looks like
Walter, I've never seen an orangutan so shaggy.
I know, look at that. And look, he's gone straight for the Dutch. Netherlands bag.
Oh, dear.
But the thing is, though, every time I've seen this, he always goes
for the first one.
Goes for the first bag.
Thank you very much indeed. That was so worthwhile waiting for.
You know what? Everybody loves an orangutan.
Indeed. Right, we're going to take a break. Back right after this.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or GBNews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Prince Harry obviously set up the Invictus Games in collaboration with Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, as part of their royal foundation, but Prince Harry took it under his wing separately. And last month he celebrated the 10th anniversary back in London. It's Invictus Games is an Olympic-style competition to help wounded veterans from various different countries with their rehabilitation through the power of sport. And that's what he's being honoured for. The reason he's got it is because of the positive impacts on, I quote, on veteran communities through the power of sports. Pat Tillman, what the award is named after, he was a US war veteran. He was killed in Afghanistan in 2004. Prince Harry, of course, served 2 tours himself. Whether he deserves it, Martin, to answer your question, clearly the judges think that that is the case. Of course, I think what we're seeing from Prince Harry over the last couple of months is him really focusing on his passion, which is helping veterans and helping families of veterans, rather than what we've seen over the last few years, which is him talking about himself and complaining about his life as a working member of the royal family.
Now, Cameron, nobody can deny the importance of the Invictus Games. What an amazing achievement. Perhaps Prince Harry's finest achievement in terms of public relations.
Having someone like Prince Harry or another working member of the royal family with their fame can spotlight very worthy causes, such as the plight of veterans and those who feel like they've been left behind and do not have enough support when they come out of the British Armed Forces. And that's something, as you alluded to, Martin, that Prince Harry perhaps arguably has done very successfully over the last decade. And if Prince Harry's name wasn't on the Invictus Games, would it have done so well? That's probably the arguments they'd make. But as you say, not everyone's happy about the fact that Prince Harry's involved, but he is. Clearly, many people think he deserves it because he's getting this award in Los Angeles.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We've got Chris and we've got Dawn, and they have got the newspapers. And guys, I work for a company who were they were taken over, and the new owners immediately put to an end this working from home business. In very strong terms, they put to an end, and if you don't like it, basically you can go and find a job elsewhere. Thought it was very, very interesting, the approach here. But we're hearing, Christopher, that more than 6 million people plan to work from the beach this summer. Now we would question the validity of that, the saneness of that, but anyway, good luck to them if they get the weather.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, so 1/3 of companies apparently, and I'm not sure, I suspect it's not SMEs, it's corporate companies, 1/3 have this rule that you can actually work from home, and 1/3. So 50% of 1/3 equals 6 million people. So they're working for the beach in the UK with all of the lovely...
Sorry, let's just break this down. Where do we get the beach element? They're working from home and it's the summer, therefore we've decided they're working from the beach.
Yeah, therefore work on holiday.
Just to clarify, that's
exactly.
our own assumption that they're going to be at the beach with their laptops.
It's the assumption of the Times. It's the Times. It's not me. But
well, no, but who's making the connection?
Who's making it up? Yeah, I'm sure someone's making it up. But I guess some of the challenges are, can you really work seriously? OK, I can understand at home in a preconceived office, but can that transfer to being on a holiday or being in your hotel or having a lovely lunch with your intended? That's a challenge. Or imagine if you can work from home abroad on the beach. So you're not on the beautiful eastern seaboard in the United Kingdom or the Western Wash. You're actually in, you name it, California. And, oh, my gosh, it's night time, but I'm back at work. Yeah. And so this is the challenge, I guess, from working from... And how does it affect the people who are also on your team but are in the office?
Yeah. But the link with productivity, it doesn't show a drop in productivity. See, and you know, you look at all the evidence from other countries where they do this fewer hours than we do here in this country, and we don't have a...
Well, I don't know why you need to take productivity tests and all this sort of thing. And you know you defend this all the time. You know you wouldn't work the same from home if you were given the opportunity.
I can't work from home, but I know that I'm capable of working from home.
Of course,
you might not be.
I would not work the same way from home. And therefore I can only judge people by that. Also, just wanted to say the company that I do work for, they basically do not have the amount of office space, desk space for those who do work at home. So if you actually say, right, you're all in work now, there's nowhere to put them, so they have to make redundancies.
But Eamonn, I, of course, through lockdown, gave speeches from home.
Yes.
And they were powerful and effective. What you missed is the interactional dynamic in the room.
I think, the serious side of it is that I think, certainly if you're a youngster starting off in your career, no matter what it is, I do think you need that interaction.
Oh, 100%. You can't have 100% working from home, but a hybrid, I think, isn't a bad thing. That's my view.
I would be the working from the beach angle. I'd be slightly worried about.
I wonder if there's any evidence of anybody planning to work from the beach.
I did an interview with someone recently, and they were working from a beach in Spain, ironically, which we could talk about later.
What was their job?
They were something in digital marketing, so they could just work from a laptop. However, I'd be more concerned that if you can do that job from a beach in Spain, I can probably get someone cheaper to do it in India.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. If you were to cut people's salary, would it make a difference if they worked from home or not? All interesting.
I'm not coming to work for Eamonn, are you? Blimey, sounds really tough.
Well, I'm quite clear on it. I genuinely do not believe you give it the same effort working from home as you would from an office.
I do agree with you. Obviously, I trust Isabel. I trust Isabel enormously to work just as hard from home.
Probably work harder without all the distractions.
And ignore the garden and the baby bunnies.
Oh, you remember the baby bunnies?
Our baby bunny's still doing fine, guys, just to report back. Should we talk about the French election? Because this has been a big story overnight. People waking up to the news this morning that whilst it looked as though the far right there were going to do very well in this second round, actually, the leftist coalition have come in, Dawn, and sort of put one candidate forward in most of the seats that were being contested and have defeated them.
This is tactical voting taken to the nth degree, isn't it? Obviously, the French elections are in two parts. The first part signified that the far right, Marine Le Pen, were going to have overall control. But the second part, there's a coalition of the left-wing parties who've got together, and what they've done is make sure that one left-wing candidate was standing rather than split the vote. Several left-wing candidates in the constituency. So if you're a voter and you're sort of like fairly middle of the road, you've got the right or the left, and you know that is how they've done it. So it's an uneasy alliance of left-wing parties. They don't actually agree with one another on many things either.
What does this mean for Macron?
Well, I mean, it means that Macron is probably going to be in charge of a hung parliament. Basically, he'll
be on the beach working.
He'll be on the beach working, and no one will notice.
Right, what are we going to? Prisoners, Labour's considering plans for prisoners to serve as little as 40% of their sentences to tackle overcrowding in prison. Your view, Chris?
Yeah, so, I mean, we've got to ask ourselves, first and foremost, what is prison for? It's a deterrence to protect the public, to rehabilitate the offender, just to say a few. And it won't apply to people who are sex offenders,
or violence,
and the like, or terrorism, of course. So, but what Shabana Mahmood, the new prison secretary, is saying, we've got to do something. We are overcrowded. Earlier this year, for example, out of the 85,000 places for prisoners, there were only 250 left. I mean, that's a massive statistic. 85k, 250 left. So we've got to do something in the short term, the next 18 months, to actually release people who are not going to be an offence to society, etc., etc. So this is the idea.
Really interesting. Starmer's appointed the Timpson's boss as his new prisons minister, and of course he was most recently chair of the Prison Reform Trust. He's really big on rehabilitation, and he thinks that prisons, unless you're a violent criminal, are a really bad place for these people to be.
Yeah, I think that was an amazing appointment. Very, very sensible from Keir Starmer there. And the thing is, a lot of people, I mean, this will affect mainly women who are sentenced to serve time for crimes, you know, not paying their TV licence, for example. Women have been sentenced for that, shoplifting.
Would you be sent to prison for that?
You can be, it depends, yeah, absolutely. But, some of the sort of like the sentencing when it applies to women, I think, so it's like, they're not going to be a danger to society. They're not violent. Many of them have children. I'm not defending anyone sort of like committing any crime whatsoever.
But Dawn, that would show me that the whole process is so inefficient. The whole prosecution process, going to court, giving a sentence, whatever. Why waste our time with all of this? There must be a different way of doing this.
There must be, and there's a huge backlog to get through as well, I imagine.
Massive.
But do you think there's a bit of dishonesty, Chris, that this has come in first weekend that Starmer's been in number 10, and obviously with his background in the CPS, no mention of it during the campaign, and obviously prisons was a hot topic, this huge crisis of no space left, and here he is, one of the first things he does. It might be the right policy, but just be honest and open that that's what you want to do.
Why would he not have been honest about that?
I don't know, maybe he didn't think it was
a vote winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we said in an earlier programme that, look, Mr Starmer and the whole cabinet have got this, we are ready for work, and in the background we've been doing all of this detail, but we couldn't and didn't want to rock the boat beforehand, because unless we are in, we can do nothing. So I'll give them a little bit of credit on that one, that they've hit the ground running, and now we're seeing...
Well, everything's about saving money. This is a money-saving measure as well. It's not that they care about anything else. The guy who's the head of Timpson's, I know him well, and this man is a saint on earth.
And his dad, I mean, they've done amazing work.
And I think the fact that you have to have other companies signing up to this. I mean, what other companies are going to say, we'll give you a job, we'll give you a position if you've got a prison sentence? Very, very difficult.
It is very difficult, and you need to take each case individually, don't you? And I think James Timpson has done an amazing job with that. A family member actually served time in prison and was lucky enough to be given a job afterwards and has just thrived afterwards. So, you know, prison is about punishment, but it's also about rehabilitation.
Absolutely.
And, you know, because we don't want people to keep going back, and we know that it does happen a lot.
And restoring them back into society. And if you go to the Timpson's centres all around the country, often in car parks around supermarkets and stuff, you see the young person in there, and you see the pride that he's, I'm sure there are some she's, having their job. And you can see that this is now on their CV, that they've had 3 or 4 years, been able to run a very small little business, little franchise. And so obviously in you can
gives them standing, self-respect, whatever.
Well, it's one of the happiest companies to work for, evidently.
We have interesting conversations with them as well. They're always really happy to chat and tell you their story.
As James himself, he goes, look, not everyone I employ is a prisoner, by the way, or a former prisoner. He keeps saying that.
Let's talk about Barcelona quite quickly.
Yes.
So if you go in your holidaymaker in Barcelona, you're being targeted as not being welcomed because you're taking up accommodation that local people can't afford and is not available now to local people.
Yeah, if you're going to work from a beach, try not to do it in Barcelona, which does have a beach, by the way. The 2,800 people turned out to protest about tourism killing the city of Barcelona. They marched down the Las Ramblas, which is the main street, pedestrianised street, where many tourists, not just British tourists, but other nationalities, were having their lunches, etc. And they were squirting the tourists with water pistols. Now, I'm sorry. If I'd been there with a husband and someone squirted a water pistol at us, I would not be responsible.
But the thing is, actually, on a serious note, there was an awful terrorist attack that happened on Las Ramblas not that long ago. Firing anything in the scene of a former terrorist attack. People died, children were maimed, and I think it's really bad taste.
It's completely in very poor taste. And plus, the restaurants are having to get the tourists into the restaurants to finish their lunches. You know, tourism brings so much money.
The only time I've spent in Barcelona has been in the airport a number of times, but that would put me off going.
This is a similar story to the one in Tenerife.
Yeah, exactly.
OK, yeah. Got to leave it there, guys. We're going to give you a weather update. Jonathan Vautry.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If it's prolonged summery weather that you're after, I'm afraid this week is not going to provide it for everyone. Whilst most of us have a slack pressure pattern to start off Monday, increasingly our attention will turn to this area of low pressure that is very slowly pushing its way in from the southwest. Already starting to see some rain into the likes of Devon and Cornwall, and increasingly that will begin to spread its way in elsewhere as well. Winds strengthening, 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts possible around some exposed coastal areas, turning quite dull and grey here. Elsewhere, there is a decent amount of sunshine to start off the day, but we will start to see some showers developing later on. In the sunshine, though, actually pleasantly warm, 19 to 21 degrees Celsius. Feeling very cold, though, underneath this cloud and rain, more around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius. For your evening rush hour, then, there will be some showers around for Scotland to watch out for. Some of them could be on the heavy side. Just take care as you are travelling home. Again, a few showers for Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England as well. Best of the brightest spells really across this central slice throughout a good portion of the day. Still around 20 degrees Celsius there in Leeds, even at 6 o'clock. But it is going to be a much wetter conditions as we end the day here across the far southwest, turning heavier as that rain begins to push its way in. Some very low cloud as well, turning murky. Really not a pleasant end to Monday at all. And that band of rain will slowly push its way into Wales, central areas of England, skirting into Northern Ireland and perhaps the far southwest of Scotland as we move closer towards Tuesday. Quite mild underneath all that cloud, though. Temperatures not dropping much below 13, 14 degrees Celsius, but a chillier start across the far northwest of Scotland. And it is this area that will see the best of the sunshine, really, right throughout Tuesday, managing to stay driest. Elsewhere, it is going to be a very unsettled day to come. Some heavy pulses, perhaps even some thunderstorms developing around the southeastern areas at times. Car feeling humid in amongst all of that, highs of 21 degrees Celsius, but still not the most pleasant of days.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
the latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are a number of cancelled ScotRail train services this morning because of a shortage of staff. Most stagecoach bus services in Liverpool aren't running because of industrial action, and the Mersey ferry suspended because of a technical problem. In Derbyshire on the A38 there are northbound queues towards Willington because of roadworks. The queues back beyond Clay Mills. In London, West Green Road, A504 is closed in both directions at Duckett's Green because of fire services activity. On the North Circular in London, there's a lane closed eastbound after an accident between the 4th Street Tunnel at Edmonton and the Kenninghall interchange, causing queues. The M4 in Berkshire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident just before junction 89 at Maidenhead, causing delays. And in East Sussex, the A259 is blocked along Wallsend Road in Pevensey, where the level crossing barriers are stuck. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christys. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there. The new Prime Minister hits the ground running.
Visiting all 4 nations across the country.
As he tries to reset relationships with Westminster.
The brand new Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is preparing to make her first major speech today and announce an overhaul of planning rules to get Britain building.
And surviving Conservatives jostle for the leadership as the election post-mortem gets underway.
France is facing a hung parliament as the left-wing coalition has halted the rise of Marine Le Pen's national rally. But what does this mean for President Macron?
And the Prince of Wales's campaign to stop homelessness is set to take centre stage in a new documentary series on ITV later this year.
There he is celebrating as well the England win in the sport. Lewis Hamilton, well, he's back now as he wins his first Grand Prix in 945 days at Silverstone. At Wimbledon, amid the mixed doubles controversy, Emma Raducanu loses to the number 123 in the world, so someone ranked higher than her. And England prepare for the Netherlands on Wednesday.
As the search for summer continues, unfortunately this week is going to be providing more of the opposite, with rain on its way. Join me later for all of the details.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Monday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster and this is GB News Breakfast.
So the Prime Minister carries on with his tour of the UK as he tries to reset the relationship between Westminster and the devolved nations. He has just landed in Belfast this morning and he will be holding meetings at Stormont
Yeah, yesterday he met with the First Minister John Swinney in Edinburgh, and today, as we've been saying, he's heading to Northern Ireland and then heading to Wales before returning to England to meet with a group of cross-party mayors.
This comes as the new government gets straight into work. Rachel Reeves, the new Chancellor, is expected to give her first major speech as she promises to rip up planning rules and get the country building.
Well, just a few moments ago, the Prime Minister arrived at Stormont ahead of his meetings with the Deputy First Minister. We can take a look at those pictures, I'm sure, in just a moment, and speak to Dougie Beattie, who joins us from Stormont. Good morning to you, Dougie. How significant is this going to be for Northern Ireland?
Well, it will have huge significance because, of course, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, comes here with a very full in-tray in Northern Ireland. The government in here has not been stable. In fact, it's been down over the last few years, and that is in around the framework document, those post-Brexit deals that came along that basically unionists here were not happy with. Now, that may solve a lot of problems because, of course, with Labour, they will want to be closer to Europe, so a lot of those checks and so forth that were put in place in Northern Ireland may no longer have any significance. But his biggest problem here will be over the Legacy Act, that act that was put in place by the Tory government to stop any more investigations into historical shootings, etc. in Northern Ireland that saw loads of veterans from right across the UK appearing in court here will be...
The First Minister of Northern Ireland there. Just saw those pictures. What way do you expect the mood there to be, Dougie?
Of greeting and meeting and trying to feel the ground. But of course, Keir Starmer has been here quite a number of times. I've met him on several occasions when he has visited here. He knows the parties well. The SDLP, of course, is the sister party of the Labour Party. And you know, it's not as if he's unknown here. He spent quite a lot of time here as the head of the DPP, Department of Public Prosecutions, and especially how Northern Ireland is funded under that Holtham formula, whether we get 124 or 127, 129, and that will cause him to have to look at that funding, how it's split up by this devolved nation, and how they work their social services, their health care, how they maintain the roads, all of that. He will be having meetings with those ministers today that look after those very issues. He has just arrived at the castle down below us. He is due to meet the Speaker of the House just behind me here in the next 15 minutes, and then he will meet with the parties themselves before having a brief press conference in the main hall before he leaves for Wales.
How does he get to Belfast? Did he come by helicopter or airplane?
Well, I believe he came by aeroplane late last night. He arrived into a hotel not too far away from here before travelling up the Royal Mile. And I'd love to see them travelling up the Royal Mile. Stormont probably has the most beautiful Parliament buildings in the whole of the UK. It sits in marvellous grounds. And when you see that convoy coming up behind you, all the lights flashing, police everywhere. Although I must say there's two protesters now standing here that are protesting about Palestine, actually, of all things. Northern Ireland has enough problems with flags, to be honest. So he's going to be greeted when he arrives at the bottom. Those couple of protesters will be in behind him. But yes, he's coming back out of here, probably heading to the airport behind us and heading straight to Wales.
Cheers, Dougie. Thanks very much indeed. Looks a lovely day there.
Well, let's go to Westminster and our political correspondent, Olivia Utley, standing by for us. Good morning to you, Olivia. Obviously, lots of focus on the Prime Minister on his tour, but also, I suppose, a word needs to be said on, I suppose, the post-mortem for the Conservatives and what their appetite is for any sort of leadership contest in the immediate future. Oscar Redrop was saying a little bit earlier that it has to be decided before conference. Is that right?
I think the Conservatives will want to get it sorted before conference, but I don't think there is an appetite to get it done immediately. Almost all Conservatives I've spoken to said that the Conservatives need some time to think, to work out where things have gone wrong, and not just to rush into electing a new leader. It feels as though over the next weeks and months we'll be sort of heading into a battle for the soul of the Conservative Party. There are Conservatives I've spoken to, Suella Braverman among them, who essentially say that the problem the Conservatives have had is not being right-wing enough, not being tough enough on immigration, not leaving the ECHR, not getting Rwanda done. She says that if the Conservatives had got all the votes that Reform had got in the last election, they would be in a much better situation now. Well, that's true, but they still wouldn't have won the election, even if every single Reform voter had voted Conservative, which seems very unlikely, even if the Conservatives moved to the right on immigration. They would have only got 296, and it's 326 seats needed for a majority, which means that the other Conservatives in the party also have a reason, a moment to have their say. And there are plenty of those, One Nation Conservatives in the sort of David Cameron mould, who point out that actually the Lib Dems won 72 seats in this election across the southeast and the southwest and the home counties, traditionally true blue Conservative land. And they suggest that, well, if the Conservatives could retake all of those seats, then they would be looking quite good as well. So they suggest that perhaps moving further to the left is the answer. There have been plenty of op-eds about this over the weekend. Really interesting one, I thought, from Robert Jenrick in the Sunday Times yesterday, saying that actually it's not about moving to the left or moving to the right. The problem that the Conservative government had is that it's made promises it could not keep. And he, I think, will probably run for the leadership too. I think it's going to be a while till we see any movement here. But there are plenty of names who are clearly jostling for position. Priti Patel has put out a few tweets. Suella Braverman's written this op-ed. Robert Jenrick too. Tom Tugendhat is apparently preparing his election campaign. So there are things going on in the background, even if the actual Conservative leadership contest won't start quite yet.
You, Olivia, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, and thanks for your comments coming in. Sue saying the government has a duty to the British people to give us the quality of life we deserve and keep us safe. Does anyone feel safe with all these unvetted migrants moving freely around the country? I have no confidence in Labour whatsoever.
And Frankie saying the only sensible thing coming from Blair is his recent comment suggesting digital ID cards don't need to be digital, but a proof of identity you have to carry around would stop all these people losing their passports when they step off the planes here. We'll be speaking to Labour. We've got an interview with them in around 20 minutes' time. We will be asking them about why they rejected Tony Blair's suggestion on that.
It's an interesting point, isn't it? Even for any of us in day-to-day life, you're always looking for a document, a licence.
I had to take my passport to Wimbledon the other day.
Had you?
Yeah.
Oh, well, why was that?
Well, you had to take ID and I couldn't find my driving licence.
Oh,
but
right,
it would be helpful if it was all just digitised, wouldn't it? That's my thought.
So let's now talk about France. And there has been a shock result in the elections overnight. The left-wing alliance defying the polls and beating Marine Le Pen's far-right national rally.
Well, what exactly does this mean for the embattled Macron with a hung parliament looking likely? Let's get the thoughts of the France correspondent for The Times, David Chazan. Indeed, your name on the front of the paper, having written the leader for them. Political chaos this morning in France.
Well, we're certainly entering a period of some considerable political instability. We've got a hung parliament, three big groups in parliament, the left-wing alliance, the New Popular Front, President Macron's centrists, and Marine Le Pen's national rally. But with no party holding a working majority, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to pass legislation. So this is a fairly unprecedented situation for France, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But David, the bottom line...
Yeah, David, I'm just fascinated to know how we get to this situation. Last week, when we look at the situation, Marine Le Pen doing so well, everybody's talking about big right-wing takeover, and then you have this thing in the French election where you pause. You pause and you say, right, well, let's hold our breaths and then we'll go for round two. And surely that would affect how people end up voting.
Well, it did massively, Eamonn, and this is precisely what France's two-round voting system was designed for, that people could register a protest vote in the first round and then make a more considered choice in the second round. So after that big victory by Marine Le Pen's party in the first round, what happened was that President Macron's centrists and the left-wing alliance cut deals to withdraw candidates from more than 200 constituencies to avoid splitting the vote against Marine Le Pen's party, against the far right. And so they urged their supporters to vote for their rivals' parties, even if those parties were not their preferred choice, even if in some cases they may have opposed them, just to get them to block the national rally from winning power. And the strategy worked. So that's why all the opinion polls were wrong. It was very hard to predict, because before the vote, nobody really knew whether people were going to follow these instructions coming down from on high and all the warnings of the dangers of the far right gaining power.
And what does this mean for Macron's presidency? I mean, it feels as though his days are numbered, doesn't it? Has he got any mandate anymore?
Well, he does, yeah, because under the French Constitution, he can remain president even if the government's formed by a party that is not his own. And so he remains president until 2027, giving him another 3 years. I think the only thing that could possibly change that would be if he were to resign. But I think that's extremely unlikely. And this was, considering the first round result, which was a disaster for his centrist group, yesterday's result is actually pretty good news, because his group is in second place to the new Popular Front. Well, what is it? It's a fractious left-wing alliance of parties with little common ground ideologically, and they're so divided that they haven't even managed to name a single leader to lead them. They're composed of parties that range from the centre-left all the way through to a far-left party led by a man called Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who's often compared to Jeremy Corbyn. And a lot of people are saying, well, this alliance is really difficult. These are parties that don't feel comfortable with each other, so it's only a question of time before they split up. And if they do, then President Macron could claim that his centrists are actually the largest party in Parliament, even if they're far short of a working majority.
Fascinating. Thanks for your analysis. Really appreciate it on this morning after the night before. Leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Well, David leading front page of the Times today. We're going to lead now with the weather. A weather update. Where's it going? Who knows? Jonathan Vautry.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If it's prolonged summery weather that you're after, I'm afraid this week is not going to provide it for everyone. Whilst most of us have a slack pressure pattern to start off Monday, increasingly our attention will turn to this area of low pressure that is very slowly pushing its way in from the southwest. Already starting to see some rain into the likes of Devon and Cornwall, and increasingly that will begin to spread its way in elsewhere as well. Winds strengthening, 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts possible around some exposed coastal areas, turning quite dull and grey here. Elsewhere, there is a decent amount of sunshine to start off today, but we will start to see some showers developing later on. In the sunshine, though, actually pleasantly warm, 19 to 21 degrees Celsius. Feeling very cold, though, underneath this cloud and rain, more around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius. For your evening rush hour, then, there will be some showers around for Scotland to watch out for. Some of them could be on the heavy side. Just take care as you are travelling home. Again, a few showers for Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England as well. Best of the brightest spells really across this central slice throughout a good portion of the day. Still around 20 degrees Celsius there in Leeds, even at 6 o'clock. But it is going to be a much wetter conditions as we end the day here across the far southwest, turning heavier as that rain begins to push its way in. Some very low cloud as well, turning murky. Really not a pleasant end to Monday at all. And that band of rain will slowly push its way into Wales, central areas of England, skirting into Northern Ireland and perhaps the far southwest of Scotland as we move closer towards Tuesday. Quite mild underneath all that cloud, though. Temperatures not dropping much below 13, 14 degrees Celsius, but a chillier start across the far northwest of Scotland. And it is this area that will see the best of the sunshine, really, right throughout Tuesday, managing to stay driest. Elsewhere, it is going to be a very unsettled day to come. Some heavy pulses, perhaps even some thunderstorms developing around the southeastern areas at times. Feeling humid in amongst all of that, highs of 21 degrees Celsius, but still not the most pleasant of days.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
If the weather doesn't give you much to smile about, time for the Great British Giveaway, because it is great, truly great.
It is, and a massive smile it should bring to your face, because you could be in with a chance of winning 30 grand absolutely tax-free, and here's how.
Summer could be a scorcher with your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. It's totally tax-free, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck.
Well, Paul Coyte, you'll need good luck to watch him on the sport, but it's a pleasure for me. I always think I've won the lottery.
Don't you try and talk your way around that, because I knew you were insulting me and then you got nervous because I was glaring at you.
Nervous, I'm so nervous. Back with Paul right after this short break.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
The mystery surrounding the disappearance of flight MH370 has perplexed the planet now for 10 years. But now all of a sudden researchers at Cardiff University have piped up and said, oh, we heard a beep. Aerospace engineer, founder of MH370search.com is Richard Godfrey. Richard, are we going to find this thing?
The new research is much more thorough and gone in much more detail. It is picking up acoustic waves under the water. It's not conclusive, but it's a good step forward.
Is this a cover-up job of epic proportions? Do you think something quite sinister happened to this plane? Because it is all very odd.
I think you're right. It is all very odd. We have a lot of data, but we don't have the final analysis, and we won't until we actually find the wreckage. The Indian Ocean is a huge place, 77 million square kilometers. When we find the plane, we can recover the flight data recorder, the cockpit voice recorder. We can learn a lot more.
Do you think someone might have shot it down?
No, the plane flew until it ran out of fuel. The plane was perfectly in working order. There was an active pilot right until the end. So my only theory at the moment is the captain of the plane actually committed a hijack of his own plane. But until we find it, we won't be able to prove that.
We are potentially a step closer now to knowing and to one of the greatest mysteries of recent times anyway, finally being solved. There's aerospace engineer there, Richard Godfrey, thank you.
Britain's election channel, the People's Channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Revamp. Sport. And Lewis Hamilton, we were just talking about him, how fast he went around that track yesterday. And then when it came to the podium yesterday, you reckon's a good omen.
Yes, because what I'm thinking here is that you've got Lando Norris at the podium, came third, and then Lewis Hamilton, Sir Lewis Hamilton at 1, 2 Englishmen and 1 Dutchman. So
I see.
You see where I'm going?
Good for Wednesday.
England 2, Netherlands 1. So whether that's going to be the case when it comes to Wednesday, I'm really not sure. How do you feel about that? Where do you think it's going to go? Yeah, well, England, Netherlands. Someone asked me. I'll be honest with you. I really have no idea. It all depends on how England play.
I can't sit and say that I fancy England as favourites or feel that. I wouldn't be surprised if they win, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lost.
Shall we see what they've been up to?
Yeah.
I'll show you what they've been up to. So this is yesterday.
Is this like preparation training?
This is preparation training,
Right.
And it's an insight into England. There we are. Oh, hello.
Foden.
There's Phil Foden having a little swim. There we are. This is it's like relaxing. It's a warm down day.
Yeah.
This was Sunday. Then after the penalty shootout. By the way, they are wearing trunks. Just to let you know, they're not completely naked.
It is. He's 19.
Yeah, there we are. Bukayo Saka.
Yeah.
I mean, he was brilliant. I thought he was the best player. I don't need to show what he's sitting in a window. And I don't know what... I hope that's not like a long fall there. Now, the problem was Anthony Gordon fell off his bike, didn't he, last week? So be very careful. And they've obviously got their helmets on. But this is all nice stuff, isn't it?
Very nice, very nice.
Very nice. There we are, all out together, having a lovely bike ride.
We should all be out like that at the weekend?
I think so, having a nice time. Nothing too strenuous, just a little warm down, get themselves ready... And they're, there we are. So it's like, what's that, medicine? I didn't know they still have medicine balls. Remember the old medicine ball? They used to do the medicine ball throw?
Yeah, but there they do. But the thing is, the actual stamina it takes to run around a football pitch and just to, keep your strength really difficult.
Well, also penalties coming at the end of extra time. So you've had all of that physical exertion and then all the pressure right at the end. I think that's always...
Oh, the pressure there. I mean, Ivan Toney...
exhausted.
We just saw... I think he was doing no-look press-ups there. So he doesn't look at anybody. That's the thing. I mean, I'm still not quite over that no-look penalty. The pressure that is on, but for some reason...
But he didn't look as if he was under pressure.
He was completely calm. And
I wouldn't want to do that.
Oh, just to step up, and then that's it, the moment when you see... And the amount of people that I've spoken to that have been in this situation, the goal starts looking smaller, the goalkeeper starts looking bigger. That's why he didn't look, because he knew where the goal was.
But they were all excellent. They were all excellent.
They were excellent.
Strike.
So I'm thinking on the show tomorrow, it all depends what you think. I'm thinking saving England footballer for Wednesday and maybe a Dutch international tomorrow.
OK.
So maybe we could get a little insight to what's going on there. But we'll save that for tomorrow. What about Lewis Hamilton? Should we do a little bit about Sir Lewis?
I think we should. I mean, it's been the first time in a long time that he's
2 years
taken the number one spot.
945 days. Saudi Grand Prix in December 2021 was the last win. It was magnificent. I mean, it really was a magnificent drive. He's set a record now for the most wins on a single circuit. So for him at Silverstone...
At home.
9 times. He's 9th British Grand Prix. And not only a masterclass of driving, but also the team tactics, which is very important as well. There we are, British World Champions there, British Grand Prix record. Look at that, Lewis Hamilton with 9. Then you've got Jim Clark, Nigel Mansell down with 4. Sir Jackie Stewart, who, by the way, I didn't mention, I saw at Wimbledon.
Oh, really?
When I was at Wimbledon, there was Jackie Stewart.
Wow. Did he see you?
He didn't see me, but my wife is going to go over and ask him for a selfie.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, no.
I had the same thing with Tim Henman. We were lingering outside the loos for a while, wanted a selfie, and then we decided it was a bit weird.
Did you not do it?
So we didn't. We carried on.
By the way, Amy, did you see that Isabel got papped at Wimbledon? She was there.
Yeah, I thought it was a very good picture.
And there was Tim Henman in the background going...
No.
Yeah,
It was lucky my husband was there with his camera and took a picture of it.
Very good. Yeah, I thought it was very good. But anyway, excellent from...
Thanks, Paul.
From old Lewis Hamilton. And anyway, things are looking much better because Mercedes is clicked, but then, of course, he's going to be off to Ferrari next season. So it's all a little bit too much too late. But anyway.
Cheers, mate. Thank you very much indeed. Still to come, we have got an interview with former Government Minister Kevin Hollinrake right after this. Don't go away.
The latest GB News travel.
On the M8 in North Lanarkshire, the inside lanes closed westbound after an accident between junctions 6A and 7 from Airdrie to Euro Central, causing queues. Number of stagecoach bus services in Liverpool aren't running today because of industrial action. The Mersey ferry suspended because of a technical problem. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, the outside lanes closed clockwise just before junction 1 at Stockport after an accident with queues in junction 23 at Ashton-under-Lyne. In Derbyshire, there are queues on the A38 heading north from Clay Mills to Willington because of roadworks. On the M4 in Berkshire, there's a lane closed westbound just before junction 89 at Maidenhead after an accident. It's very slow from junction 7 west of Slough. On the M4 in Newport, the outside lanes closed eastbound with vans broken down between junctions 25A and 24 towards the Cauldre. The queues from junction 27 at High Cross. And Penzance helicopter flights to and from the Isles of Scilly are on hold because of poor visibility.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, a new patrol team in Bradford is making headlines as it moves to control antisocial behaviour in the city centre.
It aims to improve safety and improve security for residents. And our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley has taken a visit to Bradford to see the patrol for herself.
What's happened, Jenny? Surveilling the streets of Bradford to tackle rough sleeping, substance misuse, street drinking and other antisocial behaviour. That's what a new privately funded patrol team aimed to do in the city centre in an effort to boost business. It's a scheme run by the Bradford Bid, which represents almost 600 businesses.
Is making sure that they're reporting in issues that they come across that will have a negative impact on the city centre. So you mentioned antisocial behaviour. Absolutely report that into the relevant people, generally the police, to be quite honest, street drinking to the Council for the Public Space Protection Order and the police. So it just depends on what the issue or what the problem is. They'd have no powers of arrest, you know, that kind of thing. But seeing somebody walking around with a radio on, a body cam potentially, with a direct link through to CCTV, it really reassures and it gives businesses that confidence that there are people out there that are looking after the place on their behalf.
The patrol team helps to bridge the gap between police, the council and businesses.
You've got someone sitting there, potential begging for money of people, or maybe could be potential harassing people. So we'll be looking out for things like this, engaging with them, seeing if they've had any help, any support, or if we could signpost them to the right people. Or if there's any antisocial behaviour, anything going on, any shouting, we'll engage with that. Loud music. We'll engage with people, doing stuff that, just that attracts attention of the public visiting the city.
Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Nice to see you.
The Turles Green pub has already seen the positive impact of the patrols.
It just makes you feel a lot safer. Not only are our customers and our staff safe, but kind of the whole city centre of Bradford is a lot safer when you've got people like these guys coming in, checking on us, making sure everything's running smoothly. You can see fights, you can see like drug use quite frequently. Although it does get dealt with, it's sometimes something that isn't really welcoming for Bradford.
With shoppers feeling the financial pinch, this scheme also aims to increase footfall in stores.
It's tough everywhere throughout the country. There's a cost of living crisis. People are hard pushed with utility bills, their mortgages, their rent payments. So we have to make it easy for them to come here, not more difficult.
Bradford is the City of Culture 2025, and it's hoped these patrols will encourage more people to visit in the run-up to next year. Anna Riley, GB News.
Right, let's hit the break again, and we'll be back right after this.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Criminal barrister Tony Wyatt. Tony, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Right, so talk to me. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
More writing and pulling my hair out. The state of our courts.
I want to get your view on a few things, then, seeing as you're a barrister. Rishi Sunak's come up with his Rwanda plan. Everyone sort of poo-pooing that. And Keir Starmer's come out with his border command. Is it something that may, stop traffickers from trafficking people across the channel?
The border command is essentially just another police force, isn't it, to just be dealing with immigration. I fail to see how it's new. I'm not entirely sure how it's new. We have that already. We have a border force. We live in a world where if you say there is a problem with this level of illegal immigration, you're immediately branded right-wing. I'm not right-wing. I'm nothing of the sort. But I can recognise a problem when I see it. That's a problem. That's too many people coming here illegally, undocumented, lost into a system. That's not a good thing. That can't possibly be a good thing. If Keir Starmer is going to throw a lot more people at it, then, yeah, that's a good thing. But it's hardly an innovation, is it? Immigration courts in this country have been absolutely crucified. They've been savagely cut. Where you may have dealt with 100 cases in a week before, you're now dealing with 10 because you don't have the judges, you don't have the barristers, you don't have the solicitors.
Same.
I mean, it's if you decimate the system by which these applications are processed, well, then you're going to create a circumstance in which the applications build up and build up and build up.
That's why we have a backlog.
Exactly. At the moment, the CPS estimates that we have about 75,000 cases in the Crown Court. The government would say 70, the CPS would say about 75. I'd say they'd know better, given they're prosecuting them all. They would say about 75,000 in the Crown Court, the backlog. That's up from 39,000 in 2020. Now, that's just the Crown Court. If the same thing is happening in the immigration courts, how are we ever recovering from that?
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tell you what I want to do now. We want to join the Conservative MP, former government minister as well, Kevin Hollinrake. Kevin, difficult morning for you. Congratulations on winning your seat. But overall, how bad does it feel being in the position you're in?
Well, good morning, Eamonn. Yeah, I mean, I was pleased to be able to continue to represent Thirsk Malton, the place I was born and brought up in, but it's a team game, politics. It's very disappointing to see the scale of the defeat, and you've got to congratulate the Labour Party for the victory. But also I see it as a big opportunity of the future. You know, we should be optimistic about the future. We've got the opportunity now to reflect on what went wrong and fix those things.
It's a long road back.
Crucially, find a new leader.
Yeah, and who do you think that leader would be? Who would you like to be finding?
Well, somebody the public believe we're going to tackle the issues they care about. I mean, when you say it's a long way back, Eamonn, do bear in mind that the Labour Party got less than 34% of the vote. This is the least popular majority government in history. So I think we can come back from that quite quickly, but we can only do that by picking the right leader, somebody with the right kind of determination, and critically somebody that people trust to deliver on their priorities, which has got to be about controlling migration, lowering taxation, improve public services, but also tackle some of the cultural ideology that runs through our society.
What would you say? I mean,
Yvette Cooper, I think people want to see.
Yvette Cooper has announced, you know, the Rwanda issue is dead. It's gone. They're going to refigure how they're going to do all of this. What would you say about what they're going to do?
Well, they're going to make a huge mistake. I mean, one thing about the Rwanda legislation is for the first time illegal migrants coming over the channel went into detention rather than into hotels. What the Labour government will do by scrapping that legislation, they release all those people from detention and they'll now go into hotels or council flats. That's absolutely wrong. We warned it at the time. The Labour Party strategy on this in terms of smashing the gangs is completely flawed. It won't work. Of course you smash the gangs, but that's not the only solution you need. You need a deterrent, and that's what detention and the Rwanda policy was all about, and they're going to scrap it on day one after resisting it 130 times in Parliament.
Yeah, but just a moment ago, you were saying that the next leader of the Tories needs to be talking about tackling immigration. Obviously, you're a fan of the Rwanda scheme, and they also need to bring down taxes. Well, both of those things were put forward by the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and it didn't work at an election. Braverman blamed Sunak's campaign as being an idiotic strategy. Do you think she could be the one to turn the fortunes around for the Tories, or do you think, as Robert Jenrick has said over the weekend, it's not about left, it's not about right at the moment, it's actually about trying to come up with ideas that are deliverable for the British public?
Well, I don't think it's about ideas, actually. I think it was about practical implementation. I think where we went wrong is time and time again we promised to control migration and we didn't. And sooner or later the public stop listening when you're simply making promises that you don't deliver. I think we were on the cusp of delivering on those solutions. The Rwanda plan itself was resisted 130 times by the Liberal left in Parliament. That's what stopped us from doing it. But ultimately, those are the right kind of solutions. But ultimately, people want us to see those solutions put into practice. I think that's where we went wrong, and that's what we've got to deal with in the future. So our new leader, whoever it is, there's got to be somebody people absolutely trust to deliver on their promises.
And what's the timeline going to be like, do you think? Lots of speculation that you'll be keen to get a new leader in time for conference in the autumn. There are other people saying that, you know, a leadership contest really would be letting the British public down if it goes on for too long, because you wouldn't provide an effective opposition. You've got to do this properly.
Well, I think you do that properly by taking your time in finding the right leader. That's my view on this. I don't think we should rush into that. I personally think the leadership contest should start in the autumn, probably September time, and pick a leader by the end of the year. I don't think there's any rush to do that. We need to decide the best 2 individuals to go forward to the membership. We decide that in Parliament, and then the membership then decide who of those 2 individuals is the right person to lead the party. I personally would rather take our time, have a proper debate about the issues, what went wrong, how we're going to fix those things before we find the leader by the end of the year, though, and then that leader can take us into the next over the next 4 years, hold Labour to account for what they're doing or not doing, and then ultimately present the right alternative to the Labour Party in 2029. The fact that Labour have less than 34% of the vote is a real opportunity for the Conservative Party. I said this is the least popular majority government in history. That's an opportunity for us if we get it right.
And just finally, I'm going to put a bit of pressure on you to name a possible candidate. I see Danny Kruger has backed already Robert Jenrick in a blow for Suella Braverman. Do you care to lend your support to anyone at this early stage?
No, I don't. I think we should all take our time.
Can't blame me for trying.
Listen, not at all. We should listen to the individuals and how they're going to set out and tackle these problems: migration, taxation, public services, all those things, and then make a decision in due course.
Kevin, good talking to you. Thanks for your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, let's go through the papers. And we've got Dawn Leeson, we've got Chris Akabusi, and Keir Starmer is on his tour off the UK and Ireland. I think he might relate to Ireland quite a lot. What do you think, Chris?
So I'll still think about what that... No.
Do you know what?
I mean, I think listening to the MP there, the challenge you had really is that the Conservatives were like rats in a sack in the last few years, and Labour got this great slogan. I don't believe them, but the great slogan, party before country. And they nailed it absolutely right.
Country before party.
Oh, sorry. Well,
the complete opposite.
Yeah. But actually, for the Conservatives, it was party before country. And it was so self-evident. They were so self-serving of all of the infighting. And so the last thing you want in the next couple of weeks or months is to see more infighting from that shower of people. So,
but you are going to see it.
Well, unfortunately so. But so you said that generic has come out already. Classic stalker horse is going absolutely nowhere if you put your head above the parapet so early. It's going to be somebody who's very, for example, not my man, but Mr. Hunt.
He's already ruled himself out.
Exactly, but that's a clever move.
No, you can't get back in once you've ruled himself out.
No. It's not him.
Oh, right.
So, look, what you've got, he was the Chancellor of Exchequer, he's had the strings of the purse. And he said, no, not me, no, not me. Oh, OK, go on then. Yeah? It's one of those.
I think Jeremy Hunt is a very, very capable politician, but he is just that. You need somebody now with some extra personality.
Not yet. No. What you need is the Starmer of the Conservatives. Starmer had no personality. So what you have is they push Hunt forward. Yes. And the first couple of years, he's the manager. He's the manager. He manages everything, sorts things out, takes the flag, and then the person who you are really grooming for the fight.
For the election.
For the election.
Yeah.
I think it's a she, comes forward in the last 18 months much more combative.
Can't change again, surely.
No, you can. Because it's not.
Starmer's had 5 years to play the gently, slowly, catchy monkey game, and I think maybe this is the time to find that slow, steady.
But Starmer had to get over Corbyn, so that there was a reason they had to totally change the party. I'm not saying totally change the party. I'm saying manage yourself so that the real person who you want gets elevated.
Do you think there is a real person?
I've got no doubt.
I think I agree with Chris. I think you need a caretaker manager, like a football, waiting for the dust to settle, see what the direction of travel is with Reform and some of the other parties, and then you decide who is going to be the one to take you in. But I think you do need a caretaker manager now, because there's been so much infighting. I wouldn't do the knee-jerk, right, we'll have Kemi Badenoch or someone like that. I think you need to...
Right, you're both in agreement with that, but who are you both going to go for long-term?
If you had a gun to my head and said you've got to pick one of them, thank you very much, Eamonn, I would go for Kemi Badenoch.
Bingo. 100%.
Yeah.
She'll be young, she's dynamic, she's going to be the total opposite of whoever's in the seat. She's combative, but she's a thinker. She's a thinker, so with a lot of people, there are holes in her portfolio, but that's why she'll have a cabinet around her. Ideal.
I think me may well agree with you there, because anytime we've interviewed her, she is she makes newspaper headlines which don't really translate to real life interviews, where she makes you think. She makes you think.
She's feisty as well. She stands up for herself. All that rubbish she had to put up with their David Tennant the other day.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, as a woman, I admire what she's doing and what she's achieving.
I think she'd be very impressive as well in the dispatch box opposite. If it was Mr. Starmer, I don't think it would be.
She has been when she stood in, hasn't she? So, yeah.
You're looking there at James Corden.
I know.
What did he do?
Someone has to. Basically, he's a fellow West Ham fan, as Chris and I are, and he's in a play at the moment called The Constituent, a drama about an MP drawn into a perilous situation. Where's that come from? But obviously, they were on stage when England were taking penalties on Saturday, and they literally stopped the play.
Stopped the play
to watch the penalty shootout on someone's laptop. So, and then relayed it to the audience, and the audience erupted.
What do you think of that?
It's something that can happen today. It couldn't have happened 30 years ago, where the play and the message was the most important thing. I get and I understand he's a person to people, he's roped into people, but imagine if you're not into football.
Well, I think if you wanted to watch football, you'd have gone to the football.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Personally, that would have wound me out.
It wasn't that it was all over in 5 minutes or whatever. You know, it's like a 15-minute session.
Yeah.
We're talking about. There's a big break, isn't it?
I think, you know, I get why they did it. I mean, but I mean, as
quite
you say, there are people. You know, if you're interested in football, you want to go and if you want to go to the theatre, you go to the theatre. I mean. I'm with you on that. Dr.
Michael Mosley Day. This is a whole day of programme scheduled to run across all the output on Radio 1, 2, 4, 6. Tell us more about this, Dawn.
Yeah, I think this is a nice thing. Obviously, Dr. Michael Mosley lost his life going for a walk on the Greek island of Symi last month. So BBC on the 12th of July, I'm not quite sure why they picked that particular day, they're having a whole day when all the programmes are going to be dedicated to him, and it's going to encourage listeners to just do one thing to improve your well-being. You know, not a lecture, not a nanny state lecture, but just a bit more inspirational. So sort of like, you know, more carrot than stick, as it were. But I mean, in memory of him,
literally.
Literally. How to improve yourself? If just make one change.
Isn't that what his podcast was about anyway?
Yeah,
right,
that's it. Exactly. That's why they're doing it. And I said I don't know why they picked the 12th of July, which is my wedding anniversary. But
how many years, Dawn?
More than she gets to remember.
Child bride.
Oh, okay.
38.
That's a big deal.
I know, yeah.
And that's this Friday.
That's, the 12th, yeah.
Happy anniversary for Friday.
As regards tickets for the game, the Holland-England game, how much are they going for?
Well, question, would you fork out 16,000 smackaroonies? Well, actually, Eamonn would go, no.
No, for a number of reasons. I would for maybe Man United, but I'm not English, and I think this is a really dull, underwhelming team.
Yeah, I mean, you know, well, you'd have to have someone tickling your feet, feeding you prawn sandwiches.
I'm not going with you. I know you keep asking, but I'm not going.
The bottle of champagne, chilling out, so you miss the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, gosh, would you? I mean, I just don't get it. Oh, well, I do get it. Some people have got so much money, it doesn't
mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything to them. I mean, I used to be a friend of Sir Eddie Kulakundus, and he'd fly from here in the afternoon to go to the Rose Bowl over in New York. He had more money, didn't really matter. But for a lot of people, you look at that, I mean, I wouldn't pay 1,600 quid unless I had the prawn sandwiches and don't give me copious amounts of champagne.
I mean, it's like, you know, the hotels have put their rooms up £69 to £1,500 a night. So they are ripping fans off. But I must admit, I'm one of those people the other night, I might have had a glass of wine or two, who got on the phone, I wonder how much flights to Dortmund are actually costing. And the answer is too much.
No.
But if we made the final, if we made the final... again,
let us know how much it's let's stay with sport, because Emma Raducanu, she was teasing us. We had some absolutely excellent play, and it felt like we were away. Yesterday, a bit of a disaster. She looked like she was battling some injuries, but she got as far in Wimbledon as she did just before she went on to win in the US Open. She's obviously a Grand Slam winner. There's not many of those in the world. She's got all the talent there. Do you think that she might make a comeback?
Oh, I'm sure at some stage. I mean, I heard your argument, the discussion with Eamonn earlier on. At some stage she will. It might not be as quick as we would like to hope. But
where Isabel's wrong is she hasn't got the talent. That's the whole thing.
What I was really sorry for her, though, because sport is a mental game. You've got to have the physical ability, you've got to have the commitment, desire, dedication, but it's a mental game. And she got absolutely lambasted this weekend because she, as all sportsmen and women do, we are self-centred, self-serving individuals, and if you're not, you don't make it to the top.
Yeah.
So she made a decision based on her knowing her physical ability to step back and prioritise this moment. And then she got lambasted, and she's only a young lady, and I suspect, I don't know, that she carried that with her into the arena, and this little thing between the ears, if it falters, you're gone. And so she's lost to somebody...
Do you think that actually... Because her game was so dramatically different, wasn't it, the day before?
I think so. You know, there's something called the social facilitation effect. And when you're at home, you play a home game of football or whatever, or you go to Olympic Games at home, athletes raise their game, not just because of their internal powers, because of the external ambience where everybody, the energy, the vibes are for you. If she went into that arena sensing, rightly or wrongly, that they weren't for her, they were against her, she cannot perform. And I think that has been part of...
I don't blame her at all. I think she made exactly the right decision about Andy Murray.
Andy Murray would have done the same thing.
100%!
And tennis is an individual sport, and as you say, you have to put yourself first, time and again. People say if they're married to these athletes, that they are second to them as well. Their children come second.
100%. I was married. Monica was 100%. 100%. You know, and everybody did everything to ensure that you were in the best physical shape to go and deliver.
Yeah. You're selfish, basically.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Here we are at breakfast time today, and there's a guy called Gordon Grenville Hunt. And what's different? The thing about Gordon Grenville Hunt is that he has reached a magnificent age.
He has. It's a lovely story, one of those feel-good stories. It's very sprightly. He has just celebrated his 104th birthday. He lived in a care home in Suffolk. And he did what he does every day. He celebrated by having a full English breakfast. Oh. And that is what he credits as keeping him going. Long life due to a fried brekkie every single day. And not just that, but he also has fish and chips for lunch.
Oh, for lunch? Oh.
Yeah, and he says, and as he quite rightly points out, I'm 104, I've done this pretty much all my life. I'm not going to be worried about my high cholesterol levels now.
I bet the portions were small.
Yeah.
I reckon they must have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
You couldn't be eating huge, high cholesterol, full fat.
Doesn't look that small to me. It's a picture of him in the sun, and he's got a nice...
How many bangers? How many bangers?
You see, that's a very good question, Chris, because...
I can't see in the picture.
The full English differs all over the country, so it does. And that's why you're better off with a full Ulster fry, which is different. And we have things that you don't have, like potato bread and soda bread and white pudding as well in it. But the idea, beans plays no part in a breakfast. I don't understand why beans...
No, I'm with you on that. Beans for a breakfast is wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love my old beans there with a little bit of sauce on top of it.
Yo! Oh, yeah.
Now you're talking. I'm coming to yours, not yours. For
if you have an Ulster fry, just Google one, have a look at it. You'll be fine.
I don't like the white pudding. That sounds too good.
Oh, it's lovely.
Is it anemic blood? Is it anemic blood? What is
the reverse of black pudding.
Exactly. Don't sound good. It don't sound good.
It just doesn't have the blood in it, is that?
Doesn't have the blood in it. Doesn't have the blood in it. Guys, thanks very much. I tell you what, I tell you what I love. I love a poached egg. A nice soft poached egg and a bit of toast.
Yeah.
I'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah.
Do you like a bit of grilled, crispy bacon as well?
And
poached egg over kadugri, over rice and smoked haddock. And
kedgeree.
Oh, kedgeree. Yeah. Well, forget about me, man.
Right, let's go to the canteen as the rest of us will say thank you and we'll look at the weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If it's prolonged summery weather that you're after, I'm afraid this week is not going to provide it for everyone. Whilst most of us have a slack pressure pattern to start off Monday, increasingly our attention will turn to this area of low pressure that is very slowly pushing its way in from the southwest. Already starting to see some rain into the likes of Devon and Cornwall, and increasingly that will begin to spread its way in elsewhere as well. Winds strengthening, 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts possible around some exposed coastal areas, turning quite dull and grey here. Elsewhere, there is a decent amount of sunshine to start off today, but we will start to see some showers developing later on. In the sunshine, though, actually pleasantly warm, 19 to 21 degrees Celsius. Feeling very cold, though, underneath this cloud and rain, more around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius. For your evening rush hour, then, there will be some showers around for Scotland to watch out for. Some of them could be on the heavy side. Just take care as you are travelling home. Again, a few showers for Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England as well. Best of the brightest spells really across this central slice throughout a good portion of the day. Still around 20 degrees Celsius there in Leeds, even at 6 o'clock. But it is going to be a much wetter conditions as we end the day here across the far southwest, turning heavier as that rain begins to push its way in. Some very low cloud as well, turning murky. Really not a pleasant end to Monday at all. And that band of rain will slowly push its way into Wales, central areas of England, skirting into Northern Ireland and perhaps the far southwest of Scotland as we move closer towards Tuesday. Quite mild underneath all that cloud, though. Temperatures not dropping much below 13, 14 degrees Celsius, but a chillier start across the far northwest of Scotland. And it is this area that will see the best of the sunshine, really, right throughout Tuesday, managing to stay driest. Elsewhere, it is going to be a very unsettled day to come. Some heavy pulses, perhaps even some thunderstorms developing around the southeastern areas at times. Car feeling humid in amongst all of that, highs of 21 degrees Celsius, but still not the most pleasant of days.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are a number of cancelled ScotRail train services today because of industrial action. On the M18 North Lanarkshire, the inside lanes closed westbound after an accident between junctions 6A and 7 from Airdrie to Euro Central, causing queues. Most stagecoach bus services in Liverpool aren't running today because of industrial action. There's no service on the Mersey Ferry because of a technical problem. In Derbyshire, there are queues on the A38 heading north from before Clay Mills to Willington because of roadworks. On the M4 in Berkshire, there's a lane closed westbound just before junction 89 at Maidenhead after an accident with queues from junction 7 west of Slough. In West Sussex, the A27 is partly blocked by an accident at the Fishbourne roundabout in Chichester, causing queues. In Devon, the A35 is closed westbound along Raymond's Hill at Harkham after an accident with queues towards there. And Penzance helicopter flights to and from the Isles of Scilly are on hold because of poor visibility. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Summer could be a scorcher with your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. It's totally tax-free, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The new Prime Minister is all guns blazing.
Visiting all four nations as he tries to reset relationships with Westminster.
The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, prepares to make her first major speech this morning and announce an array of new planning rules to get Britain building.
Surviving Tories jostle for the leadership as the election post-mortem gets underway.
So I think we can come back from that quite quickly, but we can only do that by picking the right leader, somebody with the right kind of determination, and critically somebody that people trust to deliver on their priorities.
A nightmare for Macron. France wakes up to a shock election result as the hard left claims victory and Marine Le Pen's national rally places third.
And the Prince of Wales's campaign to stop homelessness is set to take centre stage in a new documentary series later this year.
As the search for summer continues, unfortunately this week is going to be providing more of the opposite with rain on its way. Join me later for all of the details.
1 minute past the hour of 9 o'clock. Thank you for watching us and listening to us. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
So this morning the Prime Minister carries on with his tour of the UK as he tries to reset the relationship between Westminster and the devolved nations.
Prime Minister is in Northern Ireland this morning before travelling to Wales later and then rounding off the day by meeting with England's mayors.
Now it comes as the new government gets straight to work. Chancellor Rachel Reeves will give her first major speech as she promises to rip up planning rules and get Britain building.
Well, joining us from Westminster is our political correspondent Olivia Utley. Good morning to you, Olivia. I presume they're just trying to make as much hay as they possibly can whilst it's still their political honeymoon, if you like.
Well, absolutely. It's certainly their political honeymoon. Rachel Reeves will be making this speech at 10:30 this morning. She is planning essentially to rip up the rules that Michael Gove put in place when he was Levelling Up and Housing Secretary. Initially, Michael Gove promised to make it mandatory to build a certain number of houses in every council. But then, after a backlash from MPs with sort of leafy green NIMBY areas, as we call them in Westminster, Michael Gove watered down those mandatory housing requirements and said that actually a council could block any particular housing development if that council believed that it was out of keeping with the local area, which is quite a sort of broad reason to cancel a development. Rachel Reeves is going to be reversing that change, so she will be introducing these mandatory house building targets. She's planning to build, the Labour government is planning to build 1.5 million houses over the next 5 years. It'll be really, really interesting to see how this goes down with Labour MPs, because of course Labour MPs now quite often are in charge of constituencies which are in those sort of leafy countryside areas which the Conservatives used to hold. So it'll be fascinating to see if there is a backlash from Labour MPs like there were from Conservative MPs in the last Parliament. But as you say, at the moment, Isabel, this is very much a political honeymoon, and Rachel Reeves has seen the opportunity and is making hay.
I think you could also make the assumption that this is the only real area where they feel like they can, help to bring growth to the country, because they've created all these tight fiscal rules, absolutely no tax rises on VAT, national insurance and income tax. It's all on housing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it really is. I mean, the Labour have promised, they've talked a lot about growth over this campaign. Every single speech that Rachel Reeves made over the campaign was centred on growth. But they have sort of tied their own hands. They promised not to raise any form of taxes. There are a lot of things that they have promised not to do. And so, yes, there is a bit of wiggle room on housing. There's a little bit of wiggle room on infrastructure. But again, because they've promised not to raise any taxes, their scope for investment is really really quite low. Even on housing, there isn't really very much money behind what Rachel Reeves is promising. What she's hoping, and Labour's plan, is to get lots and lots of private investment on board. She wants it to be so that every pound that's invested by the state in these infrastructure projects, £3 is invested from the private sector. Now, it is true that the Labour government has built very, very good relationships with business over the past sort of couple of years, but it'll be really interesting to see if those plans truly come to fruition, because at the moment there are a lot of big plans for growth and very little money behind them.
And what about the relationships that they've been establishing with the nations and regions? We've seen this sort of very symbolic gesture from the PM of heading on this tour. What message does that give us?
Well, I think an element of that, well, of course, one reason is that Keir Starmer, as he said in his speech when he became Prime Minister, is that the United Kingdom is united once again, in that the SNP has been all but obliterated. Keir Starmer wants to make the most of that, and so he's doing this tour of the UK, showing that he is Prime Minister of the UK. I think another reason why he's doing this sort of whistle-stop tour as soon as he becomes PM is about his own reputation and his own standing within the general public. Throughout this whole campaign, the Labour Party was polling consistently higher than Keir Starmer personally. And actually, an astonishing number of people didn't really know who Keir Starmer was. He doesn't have great sort of public recognition. Obviously, that will change gradually as he becomes Prime Minister. But this tour of the UK is a good opportunity for the new Prime Minister to sort of get his face out there and to prove that he can be a statesman when really he's relatively unknown.
And I thought his wife passed herself very, very well on Friday as well, so it was good seeing her. Olivia, we've got to say goodbye to you because we have the new Chief Secretary to the Treasury. We say hello, good morning, and congratulations, Darren Jones.
Good morning, thanks so much.
Darren, we all know, no matter who we interview politically, that there's no money around. But what do you're in there, you're in a position, and Rachel Reeves will be talking about this today. Where is there money? Where is there a bit of money for wriggle room?
Well, look, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, will set out today in her speech on growth that is the route to sustainable public finances. If the UK had grown at the average rate of other wealthy countries over the past 14 years, this year alone we would have another £50 billion of money to spend on public services. That's the consequence of the chaos that we'd experienced with the Conservatives, the economy falling into recession or bumping along the bottom. So the Chancellor will set out today some strong, immediate interventions to be able to kickstart growth in the economy while setting out the direction of travel that this Labour government will take, with growth being our first and most important mission, so that we can get the public finances back onto a sustainable footing.
But you've set such tight fiscal rules for yourselves in the campaign, and you've made these pledges, no tax rises for working people, VAT, national insurance, income tax, that all of your eggs, really, all of your hopes for growth seem to be on this house building and infrastructure plan. And there'll be people saying, well, hang on a minute, you've got these grey belt areas that have been designated or have yet to be designated by local councils. Where's the incentive for these developers to build all these houses when they're actually quite difficult sites to develop, and you want 50% of those to actually be affordable housing? I mean, the question I suppose I'm asking is it going to happen?
Yeah, so we've been working with private sector businesses and investors, including housing developers, for a number of years in opposition, and we know there's an appetite to invest in the country. And it's not just about housing, it's about investment in broader infrastructure, whether that's transport or energy and water, as well as the community services that we want to see across the country. But it's really important that growth is the focus, because the tax burden is too high on working people. As we said in the campaign, we want that to come down. And as you said, we made that promise in the campaign not to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT on working people in the course of this Parliament. We're going to honour that promise.
Darren, there are some massive problems you have to face in some areas of black holes in spending. Prisons, one of them. We're hearing today that the Justice Secretary, Sabana Mahmood, has been advised that she's going to have to cut prison sentences and maybe by as much as 40%. And that is simply to avoid an emergency situation where there would not be enough places, that she would run out of spaces for prisoners within weeks, if not months. Is that feasible? Is that possible? Can you see that as being manageable?
Well, look, it's right that we've inherited a broken prison system. The Prime Minister made that claim over the weekend, and he's right, and that's why my colleague, the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is looking at that issue this week. We've got to fix the immediate problems, but we've also got to fix the long-term problems. We can't have a criminal justice system and a prison system which is in this mess, which is the mess that we have inherited, and it's going to be our responsibility to fix it.
Can I ask you about Tony Blair? In the appointment of Alan Milburn, who obviously served under Blair, and also Jackie Smith in Starmer's new cabinet, you get a sense that Blair is very much back. And yet here he is this week outlining lots of his ideas, putting forward ID cards once again, and that's been flatly rejected. Tell me a little bit about the thinking behind that and why.
Well, look, Tony Blair runs his own institute now, the Institute for Global Change, which puts forward policy proposals not just for the UK, but for many countries around the world. As with any think tank, we look forward to reading and considering those policy proposals. But on ID cards, to go to your question, the Home Secretary was very clear over the weekend that that is not the policy of this government. We will not be having ID cards, and that's the position.
Well, since you mentioned the Home Secretary, we've already heard that the Rwanda scheme is scrapped, and there'll be enormous pressure on the Home Office to tackle this huge problem with immigration. You'll be aware that in a huge number of the seats that you narrowly won MPs, Reform came in second. They'll be looking closely at what you're doing to tackle this problem. And the question is whether or not you've got the big idea to solve this. A border security bill sounds very similar to what was already in place, apart from the deterrent.
Well, look, we put forward our big ideas in the election in our manifesto, and that's the basis on which we were elected, and we will now implement those policies. The Rwanda scheme was always an expensive gimmick that didn't actually deal with the issue at its root causes. So the two things that we're going to do is, one, make sure that we're processing asylum applications more effectively, and where asylum is not granted, making sure that people are returned to the country they came from, but also making sure with our Security Border Command that we are starting to tackle the criminal networks who put vulnerable people on small boats and put them across the channel in return for money, which is illegal. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, when he used to be the Chief Prosecutor, was able to work with partners across the world to tackle terror, organised crime, and he's been very clear that we can take the same approach to dealing with this issue, which is what our focus is going to be.
Darren, we'll leave it there. Thank you. Darren Jones is the new Chief Secretary to the Treasury. Thank you. And just listening to what he had to say about small boats there, what do you think? You know, if we put an end to the flights to Rwanda, what does that leave? What is the deterrent? Darren's saying there they tackle the gangs involved in this, they process people more efficiently, whatever. If you're sitting in Calais today, would that put you off travelling to the UK? I don't think it would.
Let us know your thoughts on that. gbnews.com/your say.
I think the thing about Rwanda is Rwanda frightened people. It frightened them into thinking, oh, really, do we really want to go to the UK? Because we could end up in Africa.
Yes, but I think where the Labour Party had to distance themselves was, of course, the Supreme Court in this country deemed that it wasn't a safe country. I wonder if things might have been different if the deterrent had been a country where there wasn't fears about the safety of the people that we sent there. Who knows? Because we're never going to be in that scenario.
Let us know. There's how you do it. Your thoughts there. That's how you get in touch with us, having your say on the screen. I hope you have some sort of say in the Great British Giveaway. We are, because we're giving you the chance to win. What is the biggest cash prize so far in this competition? £30,000.
Yep, it's totally tax-free, but you've got to be in it to win it. Here's how.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, it's still to come. Bradford police have a new strategy for cracking down on antisocial behaviour, and it involves putting out more officers in the streets, stopping antisocial behaviour. And another thing I think they should stop, and they are tackling this, is graffiti and even litter. You know, if the area is filthy, if the area is being brought down, does that bring your mood down? Does that bring your idea about where you live down? I think it does. What do you think? Talking about that next.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Do you put jam or cream first on your scone? Divisive.
A new study has found that 44% of Brits put jam on before the cream. Which is the right way to eat a scone?
In my opinion, definitely jam first, but I have to say, do you know what? As long as you enjoy it and it's delicious, and you've got nice scone, nice jam, amazing clotted cream, who cares?
Paul, why the jam first?
Because I love that chilled clotted cream that you hit first, then into that room temperature jam, and then that lovely baked scone.
And one of our viewers has written in and said actually she puts the jam on first because otherwise you would get it all over, as in it would wobble off on the top of the cream.
But I think it's easy to dribble the jam onto the cream. You're not spreading the jam onto the cream if you put it on top.
I would do jam first because it just seems to make less mess. So the jam spreads easy and just a dollop of cream on top.
Is there much of a market for the savoury ones that you have?
Yeah. You know, like when you're frying onions for a hot dog, like fairground onions, fold that through your scone mix, bake your scone, so you've got this lovely kind of like roasted onion scone
Dawn isn't into it.
Braised beef, clotted cream, horseradish and watercress.
Oh, my word.
Absolutely incredible.
Well, you're very adventurous, Paul, very adventurous.
Yes. But think of it, you know, like when you make beef stew and you put those scones, drop scones on top, like a beef cobbler.
Yeah.
It's that inspiration.
Well, I would call it like a dumpling.
Paul, do you think very quickly, do you think these will become a classic?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Because I think there's just so much more to clotted cream, scones than just the traditional cream tea.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, let's talk about this new patrol team in Bradford. They're making headlines because it's moving to control antisocial behaviour. That will be in the city centre. They'll improve safety and security for people living there.
Well, our Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley took a visit to Bradford to see the patrol team for herself.
What's happened, Jenny? Surveilling the streets of Bradford to tackle rough sleeping, substance misuse, street drinking and other antisocial behaviour. That's what a new privately funded patrol team aimed to do in the city centre in an effort to boost business. It's a scheme run by the Bradford Bid, which represents almost 600 businesses.
Is making sure that they're reporting in issues that they come across that will have a negative impact on the city centre. So you mentioned antisocial behaviour. Absolutely report that into the relevant people, generally the police, to be quite honest, street drinking, to the Council for the Public Space Protection Order and the police. So it just depends on what the issue or what the problem is. They'd have no powers of arrest, you know, that kind of thing. But seeing somebody walking around with a radio on, a body cam potentially, with a direct link through to CCTV, it really reassures and it gives businesses that confidence that there are people out there that are looking after the place on their behalf.
The patrol team helps to bridge the gap between police, the council and businesses.
You've got someone sitting there, potential begging for money of people, or maybe could be potential harassing people. So we'll be looking out for things like this, engaging with them, seeing if they've had any help, any support, or if we could signpost them to the right people. Or if there's any antisocial behaviour, anything going on, any shouting, we'll engage with that. Loud music. We'll engage with people, you know, doing stuff that, you know, just that attracts attention of the public visiting the city.
Hi Tom, how are you doing?
Nice to see you.
The Turles Green pub has already seen the positive impact of the patrols.
It just makes it feel a lot safer. Not only are our customers and our staff safe, but kind of the whole city centre of Bradford is a lot safer when you've got people like these guys coming in, checking on us, making sure everything's running smoothly. You can see fights, you can see like drug use quite frequently. Although it does get dealt with, it's sometimes something that isn't really welcoming for Bradford.
With shoppers feeling the financial pinch, this scheme also aims to increase footfall in stores.
It's tough everywhere throughout the country. You know, there's a cost of living crisis. People are hard pushed with utility bills, their mortgages, their rent payments. So we have to make it easy for them to come here, not more difficult.
Bradford is the City of Culture 2025, and it's hoped these patrols will encourage more people to visit in the run-up to next year. Anna Riley, GB News.
Good idea, interesting idea. Let us know what you think. Letting you know what Andrew and Bev think from 9:30. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. What an exciting weekend.
Brave new dawn of the first week for the new Labour government. I bumped into a cabinet minister this morning, asked him to come on the programme. He said he was busy. Gary Jones, Chief Secretary.
Sorry, we just had him on, so don't worry.
Fine, but did he come on?
Yeah, he was on. Yeah,
fine. That's okay.
Thanks, Andrew.
Good, but there we are then. I said, don't forget GB News Minister. And I said, just stick to your guns and keep the tax burden, because he said it's an aspiration. They don't want the tax burden to rise. So stick to your guns. And I had lefties in my ear shouting and hollering. So how long will it last?
Yeah, how long will it last? Well, it's all based on house building, all hopes, it seems.
He was very conservative. Like, I was interviewing him, I was thinking, he's just like a Tory.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's the guise in my view. And of course, Rachel Rees is going to make a big speech today about changing the planning system. Local councils is just going to say you're not building on our green belt.
Yes,
that's what they're going to say. And a lot of Tory Labour MPs now are in lovely parts of the southeast and the southwest, and they're saying, "I'm sorry, Minister, can't put that development here. I've only got a mark."
And there's no money for social housing anyway.
No money.
And we've had people emailing in this morning saying their planning applications have been waiting for over a year with a Labour-led council. So don't assume it's all going to be easy.
And a lot of the reasons they don't get built in these nice places is because of all these environmental protections. I thought Labour were into all that.
Absolutely, all the biodiversity of these areas.
Yes.
It's going to be fascinating, isn't it, to see now. We've got Keir Starmer's talking live during our show this morning. Rachel Rees is talking live this morning during our programme. And one other. Who else have we got?
Nigel Farage.
Oh, Nigel Farage.
Well,
How quickly we forget.
That would be a bit more exciting.
Nigel is doing a sort of rally, a kind of American-style, everyone waving from the top
and
of the bus.
What's this rally about?
Well, just success.
Oh, right, OK.
And
it's a celebratory lap.
Yeah.
It was interesting because I saw quite a lot of ex-MPs today in Westminster. They're obviously going in to clear some of them who, of course, didn't think they'd be going in to clear their desks.
Oh, wow. In fact, we're talking to one very angry one, aren't we?
Yeah, Marcus
who lost
Fish
his seat.
in Yeovil. Who thinks the Tory party is dead. It isn't. There's still a bit of life in the court.
I know a number of MPs, and I know a number of MPs who didn't make it back. It's quite sad, actually, talking to them. It is somebody's whole livelihood.
My ex-husband, of course, didn't win the seat that he was standing for in Colchester. I'm so happy we can say Colchester now and not have to read out any names.
I was talking to Nigel Evans, who's been MP for 33 years, the Deputy Speaker. He just didn't see it coming.
I think James saw it coming. He spoke to me quite a lot.
Yeah, well, I think when I saw him a few months ago, I said, "You've got no chance there, mate."
No, but you know what? People like James, you know, they put a year at least of their life into this.
Yeah.
Everything went on hold and everything changes for them.
I know.
And changes for us. So I have to say, from a broadcasting point of view, I think it's really exciting. It does feel like a new dawn. It's not going to be the sunny uplands of Labour, but we've got really exciting things to talk about.
And also, I want to say congratulations to Esther McVeigh, colleague, friend, presenter in this station. She's back in.
Yeah, good point.
And it was very close for her as well.
They were very worried at one point.
That was good.
She's a great girl.
Well,
Guys, have a good show. From 9:30. We will say goodbye to you, and then we'll say hello to you again tomorrow morning from 6.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. If it's prolonged summery weather that you're after, I'm afraid this week is not going to provide it for everyone. Whilst most of us have a slack pressure pattern to start off Monday, increasingly our attention will turn to this area of low pressure that is very slowly pushing its way in from the southwest. Already starting to see some rain into the likes of Devon and Cornwall, and increasingly that will begin to spread its way in elsewhere as well. Winds strengthening, 30 to 35 mile an hour gusts possible around some exposed coastal areas, turning quite dull and grey here. Elsewhere, there is a decent amount of sunshine to start off today, but we will start to see some showers developing later on. In the sunshine, though, actually pleasantly warm, 19 to 21 degrees Celsius. Feeling very cold, though, underneath this cloud and rain, more around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius. For your evening rush hour, then, there will be some showers around for Scotland to watch out for. Some of them could be on the heavy side. Just take care as you are travelling home. Again, a few showers for Northern Ireland and parts of Northern England as well. Best of the brightest spells really across this central slice throughout a good portion of the day. Still around 20 degrees Celsius there in Leeds, even at 6 o'clock. But it is going to be a much wetter conditions as we end the day here across the far southwest, turning heavier as that rain begins to push its way in. Some very low cloud as well, turning murky. Really not a pleasant end to Monday at all. And that band of rain will slowly push its way into Wales, central areas of England, skirting into Northern Ireland and perhaps the far southwest of Scotland as we move closer towards Tuesday. Quite mild underneath all that cloud, though. Temperatures not dropping much below 13, 14 degrees Celsius, but a chillier start across the far northwest of Scotland. And it is this area that will see the best of the sunshine, really, right throughout Tuesday, managing to stay driest. Elsewhere, it is going to be a very unsettled day to come. Some heavy pulses, perhaps even some thunderstorms developing around the southeastern areas at times. Start feeling humid in amongst all of that. Highs of 21 degrees Celsius, but still not the most pleasant of days.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are some cancelled ScotRail train services today because of a shortage of staff. On the M1 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between junctions 47 and 46 near Leeds, causing delays. Most stagecoach bus services around Liverpool aren't running today because of industrial action. Their routes 1, X1, X2, 471 and 472 aren't affected. The Mersey ferry suspended because of a technical problem. In Nottinghamshire on the A453, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident on Ashby Road between Ratcliffe-on-Soar and the M1, causing delays. In Suffolk, the A14's partly blocked eastbound by an accident on the Orwell Bridge at Ipswich with queues from junction 55. The A12 Copdock interchange in West Sussex, the A27's partly blocked by a breakdown at Fishbourne roundabout at Chichester, causing queues, and Penzance helicopter flights to and from the Isles of Scilly are on hold because of poor visibility.